Hello.
Hello, hello,
Oh,
hello, hello,
fuck
hello.
that. Hello. Oh, that's bad. Hello. How do I sound? How do I sound? Ah, I see. Okay. All right. I guess I'm live now. All right. Post stream afterthoughts by Babylonian Hebrew. Yeah, that's stupid. Okay. Here's the thing about Babylonian Hebrew. Let me give you the lowdown. Babylonian Hebrew is supposed to be the least imaginative name ever. It's supposed to be straight out of the thesaurus because I initially wanted to call my channel Iraqi Jew because that was what I primarily made a YouTube account to talk about. Or I was talking about other things, but the thing is, the things that I was generally talking about, regardless of what it is, see, this is the kind of nature of YouTube and the internet, but it's several things, because, you know, I am a Jew, and like that, shows itself, I guess, to a degree, in my opinions, not always, but well, nonetheless, anyone on the internet, especially anyone on the internet, especially these days, talking about anything remotely political on the left or on the right or on the center, generally probably been accused of being a Jew at least once by someone, even an anonymous commenter. And I was tired of people acting after these very long strings of comment debates like it was some big revelation that I was a Jew because basically I wanted, or like some big revelation that I was an Iraqi or an Iraqi Jew. I mean, I'm not, see, the thing is, I'm not Iraqi. I'm like a fake Iraqi, a fake Englishman, a fake American, a fake Israeli. Um, it's funny because my family left Iraq before it was called Iraq. It was, I believe, even prior to being called Mandate Mesopotamia. I believe it was actually in the mid to late 1800s. I'm not exactly sure what it was called back then. Let's defer to Wikipedia. I'm not an Iraq history expert in terms of the colonial politics. I'm really interested in the culture, though. I like the art, like Iraqi Jewish art. I'm super into. And actually, I'm right now. I'm working with a historian and like a genealogist. My mom and I and some other people in my family. Oh, that's annoying. Are going to do a book chronicling the ancestry on all the sides of my family. And although it would literally just be basically doxing myself, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. It's like, it might be such a cool project, and I might just end up publishing it. So, like, yeah, sure, like, I'll post it on this channel probably, and everyone can check it out, or I'll post like fragments of it because it's pretty interesting stuff. Let's see. Anyway, let's see. What was I going to say? Tonight's stream, the the quote English quote like English American. It's funny. It's like English American Israeli, English American Israeli Baghdadi Jew Hebrew meets Shia like Canadian English Iraqi. It's like Arab. It was just pretty funny, and I think that tonight's stream, the stream earlier tonight, was a really interesting contrast, basically, in terms of how do I explain it? Contrast. You're looking at, I'm not going to say Iraqi Arabs and Iraqi Jews are genetically different, and Iraqis are, the population called, quote, Iraqis varies. Like, there are like different peoples all over Iraq. I mean, I'm not even talking about like uh, the Assyrians in the north or the Jews or like the what do you call it, the like black people or part black people descent in Basra. Black people. That's not really correct. I mean, that's not anthropologically valid. Sorry, I'm tired. Quote unquote black people. I believe they're sort of like Congoids from East Africa. I'm not exactly sure what language they spoke. Maybe Swahili speakers. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. Forgive me to all my Swahili speaking listeners. I know I've got one or two out there. But let's see. Yeah, it's like the Chad Mesopotamian versus the Beta Mesopotamian. Basically, is what we saw. All right. So here's the thing. Like, this is a message for Norvin Hobbs and Wesley Hartman, and yeah, Norvin Hobbs, Wesley Hartman, Wes Hartman, and all the people in the chat who are like constantly, because this is a constant thing. Because if I didn't open my I mean, if I did open my mouth, it would probably manifest itself to some degree, perhaps in my mannerisms. But it's like basically I'm like a. Let me explain. My ancestors lived in cities as far back as I can trace. Pretty much on every side of my family, as far as I know. They lived in cities for at least 300 years and probably a very, very long time after that. Urbanites, scum, basically, but also urbanite genius. That's the interesting thing. A society needs a balance. A society needs a Fahad, and a society needs a Babylonian Hebrew, and everything in between. Because I'm like the autist, basically. I'm like the dude who literally, basically, autistically sits at home all day and like reads like fucking articles on like very pointlessly, stupidly obscure things, and like basically just like literally, yeah, it just basically, I don't know how to explain. Like the thing manifests itself. Like I just have the sort of mind of the academic kind of weak urbanite thing. I just have that going on. Um, sorry, I'm a little tired right now, and I mean I've just been going through a lot in my personal life. Can't really go into the details right now, but it's just been incredibly a real roller coaster, incredibly straining. The stream was a nice little lighthearted moment, though. I enjoyed that. It was a nice little moment moment of escape for other. So back to the thing. Fahad versus me. I was saying me. Let me explain. Cosmopolitan cock. Soy. I would say like soy goy or soyum if I wasn't Jewish, but I'm not. So it's like what's a version of like incorporating like someone in the chat make like a soy Jew joke. That would be nice. Anyway, point is soyum. Yeah. Point is, let's see. Where do my like effeminate weak tendencies come from? Let me tell you. I'm a literal soy boy. All right. Let me tell you the story about me being a soy boy. Uh, my mom is effectively been vegetarian vegan for a large portion of her life. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was like when she was going to like her prep school or when she was in college or like post college, or I don't know. She was doing a whole lot of stuff, but in her life, like she was a very led a very interesting life. But she basically, yeah, um, I don't know, academic tendencies. Let's see. Uh, academic tendencies. The sort of academic class of people, the sort of like priest class. You know what it is? Like, I feel like probably because my ancestors like read so many like Talmud, Torah, commentary, analyses, Kabbalah, Zohar, whatever, just poured through that. Like that's literally what they were doing. They were doing that, and they were like keeping the logs of the people, like the logbooks of um like financial transactions, for instance, uh, for merchants, where they were plotting out routes, they were interacting, they were negotiating trades, they were maybe lending money, keeping logs of that. Because if I'm not mistaken, you can lend money to a non-Jew, but you can't lend money to a Jew, according to some Talmudic analyses, and that's effectively how it panned out. Is you can't charge interest to a Jew, but you can charge interest to another goy, to a goy, basically. Another goy in the sense of like goy being the word nation. Anyway, Fahad versus me. Fahad is the Chad Mesopotamian versus the Beta Mesopotamian. He's the Alpha Mesopotamian, effectively. But the thing is, you need a balance. He's a raging bull. He's a bull in a china shop. He's rambunctious. He's how would I put it? Enthusiastic, rambunctious, energetic, boisterous, even perhaps dare I say? Uh, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. The stream seems to be cutting out a little. I'm not sure if it actually is. If anyone's in the chat, let me know if the stream's wavering. I think the pagans are trying to hack me over here. I'm being DDoSed by the pagans. It's Travis and Norvin and their whole gang coming after me. Anyway, let's see. Fahad is in so many ways the opposite of me, but we have the exact same discussion style, which is quite amusing. And there are lots of people in the Middle East talk like this. Okay, I've been to Israel and I've dealt with Middle Eastern people who are not from Israel, and even though my family is very Westernized, even Ashkenazi Jews who are very, very Westernized. They've been Westernized for 2,000 years, even have some of these traits. But like, it's this thing. It's like this Middle Eastern thing, and even perhaps more broadly, it's a Mediterranean thing, but specifically Middle Easterners. They get very. You need to match them at their energy level. And the thing is, I wasn't really able to do that because I was out strolling around on the Upper West Side. I was actually right on Central Park West, and just sort of walking around that area. It's kind of nice. It's kind of quiet. There were a lot of people walking their dogs. Sort of a lot of like sort of boomers. No offense, older people walking their dogs and stuff. I couldn't really match Fahad's energy level, but I really, and also I didn't want to override the show. And I kind of really like to observe decorum on Luke's show. I don't really like to go out of line. As Luke says, stay in your lane, goy. No, Luke likes to say, stay in your lane. And he means well when he says that, I believe. Uh, Luke's an interesting character. I don't know. He's quite intelligent, that's for sure. Anyway, back to me and Fahad. It's the duality, it's the parallel, it's the yin yang of the Middle East. And then that other guy, Revolutionary Shia. Okay, that dude was so smart. He was so smart. I liked him. I didn't even necessarily agree with everything he said. There were some things I was rewatching the stream, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure I'm necessarily even. When I say don't agree with things he said, I mean I don't necessarily agree with like some of his fundamental premises or like conceptions, but of like what's occurring fully. But I think that he's just super on point and super intelligent. He's a great guy. I'd love to have a discussion with him sometime. I think that I mean him and Fahad, it was nice, interesting chemistry, but like it was just getting a bit tense. And like although I did kind of goad them on perhaps a bit, I didn't realize that. See, I'm used to pouring kerosene on the flame because I'm used to sort of dealing with these kind of like kind of no offense, but like these kind of more passive like European type or like Westerners, and it was just sort of like really just sort of like passionate Middle Easterners, and we were talking about like nationalism and ancestry and like our culture and religion and all that intermeshed with our personal lives, and it was getting super heated. So at a certain point, I tried to diffuse it because honestly, I thought that Fahad. See, here's the thing: Fahad's boisterousness makes him appear deceptively boorish, less 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 I really don't want to be rude, but sort of perhaps a bit less intellectual. It makes him seem perhaps a bit less intellectually well equipped than he actually is. He is actually quite sharp, and that manifests itself at several points on the stream, and he does know what he's talking about in a lot of areas. But he's also, it's like, okay, see, here's the thing. No one normal comes onto Luke's stream, but it's interesting. Even the people who simply happen to wander across Luke's stream are a bit eccentric. You know what I mean? They live life on the edge a bit, perhaps. It's no one's really just. I mean, perhaps some people are a bit archetypal, but everyone has a bit of a quirky, eccentric element, and those words are overused in self-description, but in this case, I think it's really evident. I mean, and this is being polite, of course, quirky, eccentric. I mean, I could say harsher things about certain people, but it's like, I mean, I am literally, see, the funny thing is, I'm literally one of the most annoying people on the show, except I'm a consistent guest because I literally have no idea. I literally have no idea why I'm a consistent guest. Honestly, I was honestly expecting to just come on for a few episodes, like contribute here and there when I actually had something to say. But um, I usually get regular invites. This particular stream, I actually didn't get an invite, even though this stream is the one that was like most to my interest, and that I wish I had been able to participate in the beginning when it was kind of calm. Because by the time I had joined, it had gotten rather heated up. Fahad came in guns blazing. It was like that picture of Sam Hyde holding someone in a headlock, and it says, "The weak fear the strong." It's the Persian fears the Semite. Persians are Persians in the West generally tend, especially the ones who have been here for quite a while, like the post-revolution ones, from my experience, are very well educated, mild mannered, observe decorum, very sophisticated, to a capacity westernized, even though they do express a great deal of sort of nationalist or identitarian latent sentiment often that sort of manifests itself during, I mean, I don't know, the occasional parade or anti-Shah stuff, supporting people who oppose Iran particularly much. I'm not sure. Uh, but yeah, there is the sentiment sort of, because the these are the Zoroastrian people. I'm not sure. There are more Zoroastrians in America than in Iran, Persia right now. I don't know. But I know that there's Zoroastrians here. There's Zoroastrians in New York City. I went to one of their events. It was sort of, there were fire. There was a lot of fire. It was at night. It was I was very young. Um, anyway. Yeah. Okay, the point is, like, this is like Iranian elites. Not only Iranian elite, but like Iranian westernized, Americanized elite. That's this guy, um, Revolutionary Shia. But he's also quite ideologically reactionary from what I saw. And although I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said, I thought that he was quite on the money. So yeah, again, smart dude, interesting. But the thing is, he couldn't match the Arab. He couldn't match the Arab. He couldn't match the Arab coming in guns blazing, full energy, because he wasn't prepared to. He was coming in there like, oh, intellectual big brain nibba discussion, which is like very typical. Like I see it. Listen, when every single time I've encountered Persians in real life, on the internet, etc., every single time they've been a big brain nibba. Persians in the West, they're so like, I wouldn't be surprised if demographically Persians in America on average polled for like being as well educated as amongst the most well educated minority groups, which are like certain groups from like India, East Asia, Jews. I think maybe some other Middle Eastern groups. I think Lebanese Christians are quite well similarly. I think there are some European/Christian groups that do quite well, like Episcopalians. I don't know. Point is, yeah, like it was this big brain nibba Persian, and they were agreeing. That's the funny thing. They were agreeing. But this dude, I mean, I didn't even know what was going on in the stream. I didn't even know the context. But it was just this dude it seemed like he was just to a degree coming in to stir shit up. But I loved it. I loved it, and I loved like his his spirit, his charisma, and I don't know. I thought it was a great stream. It's just a shame it wasn't longer, and it's a shame it wasn't a little more productive. I would have liked a bit more sort of like like it would maybe they could have like cordoned off the sort of more intelligent discussion because Fahad was capable of it. He was just going. He just kept going ham. It's again. It's the it's the it's the Arab is the anti-Jew. The Arab is the anti-Jew, but also the parallel Jew, the mirror Jew. And this is really interesting. This is something that I'm about to go into, and I will go into it in one moment, but I quickly need to use the restroom. So I'm going to walk away from the microphone. If anyone in the chat would like to enter the stream, please just send me a message. The Iraqi Arab and the Iraqi Jew, the English Canadian Shia, Iraqi Arab, Muslim, and the English American Israeli Hebrew Jew, quote unquote. I mean, I say all those things, but are any of those things true? Are any of those things real? It's interesting. In this modern age, it's like, it's really curious. He's done a good job, though. He really is, like, in a way, he really is like an Iraqi. He really is an Arab. Am I really a Jew? I guess in a lot of ways I am. But the thing is, Jews and Arabs, we started at a similar point. We descended from a common ancestor. It's like the whole thing, the people of Shem, and the whole thing. The name Abraham, it's started Abaram. Abu is what they would say in Arabic. That means great father, was his original name, because he's the great father of like all sort of like the Afroasiatic and sort of East Mediterranean peoples. I don't know, is the premise. Anyway, let's see. Uh, I just think, yeah, it's an interesting duality. He was talking about clans or tribes rather. I mean, see, that's a thing because it translates over funny. He was banging on about tribalism, basically. And some people didn't, I feel like people in the chat and in the Hangout, um, except perhaps the Persian gentleman, revolutionary Shia, didn't know exactly what he was talking about. What he's talking about is families, basically large extended families, people who share a last name. Because the thing is, there's like I think it's what's it called, matronym. Is that what it's called? Like patronymic naming system is when it descends from the father. So it's like so Jews. The reason why Jews have names like Goldberg, Goldstein, Finkelstein, Finkelberg, Diamondberg. What are some other classic Jewish names? Like stuff like that. Rosenbaum, Rosenthal, Lilienthal, things like that. Um, the reason those names arose is because there was like I think a census or something like that. Like Germans, they were quite ahead of the time, and they were doing a very early census. I think in like early medieval times or something like that. And the Jews, they didn't have any last names because they used the naming system that traditionally Jews and Arabs would use, which is just take the last name of your ancestor. And some Jews and Arabs still do this today. But basically, it's like um, they just took random things, random objects like trees, like Rosenzweig is like rose twig or something, like Rosenblatt. I don't know what a blatt is. Liechtenstein. I don't know. Light stone. You have I don't know what a Finkelstein is, another kind of stone, I suppose. I don't know what Finkel means. Yeah, and so on and so forth. Uh, all right, so yeah, that's why Jews have the names like that. But the point is, here's a parallel of Jews and Arabs. He's talking about these big extended families. You can even see this with not the more assimilated, secularized Ashkenazi Jews, but even the sort of the more Orthodox Hasidic and Haredi Ashkenazi Jews or Orthodox Jews in the West seem to have this system. They have these big extended families and these big extended clans, and it's like, oh, the rabbi's clan, and he has a lineage. That is what is being spoken of when they speak of tribe. And in a way, there are tribes. The Rothschild family is a tribe in the sense that he was talking about it. Tribe, a clan, an extended family, basically. It's and yeah, I guess it translates over as tribe. I don't know, would it be Kabila? I don't know. Is that the word that it would translate from? I'm not sure, but it's interesting. I think that yeah, and this plays a huge factor. For instance, this plays a huge factor in the politics of West Asia, Semitic West Asia. Can't speak for the other parts, don't know about it, but these big extended families control everything. Like the House of Saud, that's that's a tribe, and then you have like of course you have like the tribe of people of Muhammad. You have like there are Jewish tribes who are in that were like in the Hijaz that had beef with Muhammad. There are there are a whole bunch. Like here, okay, here. Let me name some tribes for you. Tribes. Let's see. Kaduri. The Kaduri. There's a whole bunch of people who share that last name, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and they're all, it's like a big extended family. There's Sassoon, Sasson, so the Sassoons, the Syrian slash Iraqi. It's like a big Mizrahi Jewish family. They have, I think, a lot of power and influence, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I was talking about the Rothschilds earlier. Um, there are some more. I was gonna say some people that were related to me, but I don't want to self dox. Um, actually, it's not even that bad. Like I don't even think this is that bad of a self dox because it's such a big family. That's the thing about tribe, about clan. Like it, the what do you call it? The Haas family, as it were. The how do I refer to them? The Haas, the Levi Strauss related family. They're a big clan. They're a big tribe. They're all these people, and they sort of are spread out. And I don't want to go too much into it. I don't. Yeah, but like basically, it's like yeah, all these, and these are basically like the people who Levi Strauss had no descendants, but like he had cousins and relatives, and then people descended from them and like inherited the business. And I mean, the business is out of the family, but there's sort of like this kind of leftover like clan lineage of like these kind of old money American Jews. It's interesting. Yeah, so that's what he was talking about when he was talking about tribes. And this is a parallel between Jews and Arabs, even Ashkenazi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews, and Arabs. Tribal. They're tribal people. They have these big clan extended families. Not all of them. Some Jews are more westernized. Some Jews don't do this. Hashtag not all. But it's a nice generalization, and it's something that I've personally observed in my life. And I mean I'm part of a bunch of them. So it's like, yeah, it very much affects me and impacts my life. I go to these big extended family gatherings, big extended family meetups, sometimes in holidays. Um, it's interesting. It's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'll meet relatives that I didn't even know existed who just kind of appear out of the blue, and it's really kind of phenomenal and funny and interesting. Like I'll meet these super crazy, insane people who I didn't even know. We didn't even know anything about will just sort of appear out of the blue. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't know. And and I mean, it's funny because they're all just sort of like doing they're doing their thing. They're like all one of them is a rabbi and a lawyer, both. One of them is a one of them's in like an engineer and an inventor or something like that. Think one of them's a hedge fund manager. One of them does another Wall Street thing. I don't know. They all do. It's like just sort of okay, cool. Again, this is the difference. Like Fahad, is that his what his clan is was doing? No. Here's the thing. Arabs, there was a different selection process. Arabs descend from conquerors. In an Arab Islamic society, the conqueror is the one who spread their lineage forth. In the Jewish Hebrew societies, he who was adapted to a life that was perhaps semi-nomadic, urbanized, uh, effeminate, kind of like weak, does not value physical strength, but values mental capacity, specifically certain types of mental capacity and abilities to perhaps certain types of argumentation. And this applies to both the more religious communities that are like that will do religious things all day, and the more quote extroverted Jews who are even semi assimilated. They just gravitate towards the more cerebral fields of life, and that's the funny thing. And Fahad, Fahad and I, super interesting. I talked to so many Iraqi Jews, and he is so different. Even how he looks is different, and that's the funny thing. Iraqi Arabs look different from Iraqi Jews, and you know what the thing is? Like the stereotype of Jews in Iraq, like they like Jews would, I mean, not get teased or harassed, but they would get like sometimes a little bit teased in the sense of like, here's this trait, you are a Jew, ha ha. But like, you know how people in the West, they point out Jews. They're like, oh, like Jew nose, Jew hair, um, et cetera, Jew height, you know, short, or Jew physique, scrawny, etc., or lanky, etc. Um, yeah, it's like they're pointing to traits that are pointing to these sort of traits that are more like for direct towards urbanized or urban kind of cosmopolitan life, but also just they're pointing at sort of like Middle Eastern traits when it comes to like the face and hair stuff, like outside of the body stuff. But the stereotype of Jews in the Arab world is like pale, but specifically light eyes, lighter hair, lighter eyes, like specifically like, oh, blue eyes, green eyes. Green eyes is really the main thing. Like green gray eyes. Like I have gray eyes here. Oh, gray eyed Jew. I can't. Here, I'm looking at the camera. Yeah, gray. It's sort of a grayish green, actually. It's not quite just gray. But that's the thing. Pale skin. Part of that has to do with staying inside all the time and the fact that I've been like totally indoors, and it's New York and it's winter and cloudy, and I've sort of locked myself in and become a total shut-in for the most part, aside from like some really urgent stuff that's going down in my life that I'm kind of forced to attend to because it's a really irritating surgery. And then the other things going on in my life are also just sort of debilitating and keeping me kind of stuck where I am in New York City. Sort of, again, personal matters, family matters, other life matters, academic stuff, career related stuff, family business stuff. It's I mean it's whatever. It's like I don't like this. I want to, I have an ascetic drive. I don't like the whole like monetary, but I don't want to like get bogged down in this nonsense. I'm really actually looking forward to moving to Israel. I'm super excited. I'm planning it out every day. See, I don't want to do it badly because you'd only do it once, and how you do it matters. Because if you end up in Israel and you're sort of stranded, Israel. Let's just say this: Israelis are leaving Israel. Israelis are leaving Israel. Why would they, in an age where they're barely hiring Israelis and paying them enough to live and find suitable housing because there isn't building enough? Why would they need some stupid, like romantic idealist English speaker, like random dude? Like, what am I gonna do? But see, here's the thing: is I don't care. Literally, like I kind of want to just like, you know, like live in a cabin in the Negev with like some goats and like I don't know. That's the thing. But like I also have this social drive, but it's like I kind of want to take it easy for a bit. Like I don't know, just take it easy for a bit in life. Like really just read more, learn more, specifically like get more of a religious education. Uh I don't know. Just like do some wholesome stuff, you know, have some kids, maybe have a family, dare I say. I'm I don't know. This sort of the whole like New York thing is really just sort of starting to wear down on me. It gets a bit tired. I mean, at heart, I'll always be like the sort of like weak, emaciated cosmopolitan type, but it's like even me, as like you know, like a Hebrew lanky bug man, I get tired of it. And yeah, I was saying before, like yeah, Jews were like the were like it's like the thing. It's like haha, like oh look, like green-eyed Jew, blue-eyed Jew in Iraq in Baghdad, and yeah, the dude was like Baghdad is full of Jews. He's the only person. It's funny because I didn't know that Iraqis know so much about the history of Iraqi Jews. That's really that dude knows so much. He was just super knowledgeable, Fahad. Um, Baghdad is the second Jewish ethno state. We need to. It's like a little colonies. You know, we're gonna have the main Jewish state in the Levant, and we're gonna form little colonial sort of city-state polities. Um, we're gonna make Ashkenazi state. Wait, is it gonna be in? Because there are these stupid like autiste Ashkenazi Jews. I mean, no, actually, that I'm sorry, I'm that's mean, but like there are these there are these Ashkenazi Jews who like look down on Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews, and they're like, oh, we don't want to be in a nation with them. And some of them even literally will say like, oh, we should have our own nation, like separate from them. And a lot of them are like right wing, and a lot of them are left wing. Like it's apolitical. Like it's all just this Ashkenazi perspective, and it's like, okay, maybe you should have your own country. Like that might actually be kind of cool, and we can maybe have like a little bit of an alliance. Like, you listen, if you're just gonna weigh down our country with like this Enlightenment shilling. Okay, I think I'm getting comments. Hold on, comments in the chat. Am I getting comments in the chat? Let me see. Am I getting comments in the chat? Oh shit, I am getting comments in the chat. Here. Let's see. Oh shit. Here. I'm coming. Someone says, God Saad is a Lebanese Arab. He is not a Lebanese Arab. He is a Lebanese Hebrew, and Lebanese, quote, Arabs are not even that Arab, really. They're ancestrally, a lot of Lebanese and Druze people and Mizrahi Jews are more genetically related to 3,000-year-old skeletons from like Bronze Age Phoenician slash Canaanite slash whatever from Israel and slash Lebanon area than they are to like people from the Hijaz, let's say. Hello, welcome to my stream. Oh,
hey, Babs.
hey, what up? All right, people are telling me things in the chat. That Iraqi DNA is telling you to live with goats. That Iraqi DNA is telling you to live with goats. Listen, I don't do Iraqis like goats. I didn't know that that was a stereotype. I thought that was like a Gulf thing. I thought that because there's this special breed of goats, like Shami goats. I mean, I guess that means like Levantine goats, but it's not. Uh, Gulf Arabs have a great affinity for goats, but I think that goats in Mesopotamia and the Levant um, and whatnot are not necessarily viewed as like that high status or cool of a thing. But goats are like can be really like high status cool. Like they're goat shows, like fancy dog shows, fancy goat shows. You need to look up this type of goat because it looks kind of weird and messed up. Shami goat here. Can you screen broadcast and pull one up? Can a Shami goat?
A shimy goat. How do you spell shimy?
Shami.
Shamy.
Shami.
Oh, I and then
yeah.
goat.
Someone says yeah, Shami goat here. The Chad Fahad BTFO'd the entire stream. He stole the show. I totally agree. Hail Fahad, hail victory. I agree. Fahad. He came through. He's righteous. Lola's 25. What equipment do I need to enter your stream?
Can you see the shot? Oh God! It looks like it has a fucking tumor.
Yeah. Hold on, Lola. All right. Enter my stream. I posted the link in the chat, but if that doesn't work, you can literally just email babylonianhebrew@gmail.com and do it old school, Luke Ford method, and I can just email you the link. Here.
Can everyone
go live
see
with that again? Go big screen. Go big. Make it full. Take a look. Okay. Play a video.
Open image in new tab.
Yeah. Just play a video. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you're doing. Just play a video of the goat.
Okay, play video of goat. All right.
Yeah. Here. Hello, my fellow Jews. Bab's new cousin.
Oh Jesus.
That's me.
Ironically.
Someone says a Jewish lawyer. Yeah, someone's in my family's a lawyer. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Hi, Babs. Love from Lola. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Take my link if you'd like to join. Or literally here. Hold on one sec.
Can everyone see the goats? Can everyone in the chat? Can you see the goats?
Yeah, play that live. Keep playing it. This is the Babylonian Hebrew experience. No, actually, this is the Blue Lizard experience. This is a much more.
This is the blue Babylonian goat experience.
No, this is the less good subpar version of anything. Like, see, I put very little effort into my channel. People ask, Frame Games has been around for far shorter than you. How is it that you got noticed? Well, I'd like to say, first of all, I'm nothing like Frame Games. I mean, I've got nothing wrong with him, but like, I mean, although we notice and point out different things, we just come to different conclusions with it. He's like, I don't know, he's like this sort of like American, like nationalist, like, oh, like, I don't know, like white. He has internalized white supremacy. That's the problem. He suffers from internalized white supremacy. This is my main gripe with him and other people in the chat, like not chat, but like Jake, Jakey, Peter, and people like that. I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like Jake, Jakey has a Jufro. Just um to the people trying to get in, Lola 8185 and Lewis, please just email me at babylonianhebrew@gmail.com and I'll send you the link. Or Lewis, you can Discord me. But let's see. The stream was on fire tonight. Yeah, the stream was on fire. I have a
Dude,
message
I
from
mean,
Lola. I
I
read that.
was
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Shalom. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate. I mean,
Babs,
I just want to have an interesting conversation. That's why I have this channel. Go ahead, sir.
Babs. I was
Not an
I
interesting conversation with you, Goy. No, please go ahead.
no, I was on I was actually on Pill Eater's live stream, and on Pill Eater's live stream, we just stopped the broadcast because we all had to watch you and Fahad. That's what we we
Me
all
and
had
who?
to.
Me and Fahad. Oh yes. See, this is the thing. It's like when you get all the Middle Easterners together and they're talking about certain topics, but I couldn't go full maximum energy. See, the thing that people don't understand is people like Wesley Hartman and Norvin and whatnot. It's like, yes, I am the sort of like cuck, soy Jew urbanite type. Yeah, that's true. But I have this other side to myself that can occasionally come out, and it's existed in me since birth. And it's sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it. I'd say it's beyond a sort of, I'd say that I can get very quite aggressive, overly passionate, zealous, perhaps even if I get worked up and I get into the right topic. And it sort of manifests itself as kind of like stuttering spurgery when I'm in voice chat, because it's like I have to be kind of quiet because of just physically where I am, just due to New York City. But there, in the future, I think I'm going to be able to be a bit more louder and more passionate. Like if I plan something out with Fahad, and I'd love to have him back on my channel, we can do just a proper sort of like actual like Middle Eastern dance off. Because here's the thing, like Mesopotamian meltdown, Mesopotamian rumble. See, here's the thing about it is his mind and my mind work in the same way, and we have a very similar style and approach to conversation. What we end up effectively delivering is content wise generally tends to be a bit different in several ways, but the style is as thus. Whenever any one particular thing or aspect or word or usage of a term or even an implication or an inference you get from the other party's sentence occurs, just instantly start talking over them and like point it out, because like you're so passionate / triggered that you can't resist. So you instantly just start talking over them and start rebutting their point or responding to them or trying to correct their framing on the situation because you don't like it. That, and also completely dominating the conversation, and oh my god, just sort of kind of silly stuff like that. And I do have these tendencies, and I mean, I can't help myself. I'm sorry. It's just my nature. But I should refrain from myself, control myself, engage in decorum. I am in America after all. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Can. What's on your mind tonight besides goats? Someone says the Chad Chamois goat versus the Virgin Gulf goat. I agree. Chad Chamois goat versus the Virgin Gulf goat.
I don't know. I guess
the goats are good. The goats are like, this is just literally goats. This isn't anything sexual to Mr. Diaz in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing goats because I'm scared of where the conversation on goats is going.
No, I'm not going to say anything. It's this fucker in the chat.
No, I understand.
Dude, just keep the goats up. I need to give the audience something to look at. This is pleasurable visuals. Better than nothing.
All right. Enjoy the mechanical nips, everyone.
Oh, yo, I'm getting Fahad. Hold on. I'm getting Fahad. Here we go. Oh, what? Yes. I'm going to add Fahad to the chat. Perfect. Why didn't I do this earlier? Easy. Here we go. Mesopotamian meltdown. I need to be kind of quiet because it's the morning. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to really get on his level. He might steamroll me. I might get demolished.
And here's the thing.
Here's the thing. Wesley Hartman and Norvin Hobbs and all the shit talkers in the chat, all the soy boy haters and the anti sort of like cosmopolitan. See, here's the funny thing. It's like I am what's it called? I'm more masculine than the average diaspora Jew, but that's not necessarily saying much. Like I'm 6'3" and have facial hair, but it's like, okay, cool. But it's like compared to, it's like it's just kind of funny. I like Jews get steamrolled by Arabs, and so does everyone else. And that's the dynamic that happened in the chat earlier tonight. Fahad just came in and he conquered. He came, he saw, he conquered. It was the Fahadian conquest. Welcome, Lola.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm excellent. I mean, actually, I'm kind of a bit tired. I just recovering from a surgery. Slightly out of it, just going through a lot of stuff in my personal life, and can't sleep. I just had a lot of packing removed from my stuff. How do I have time for this stuff? I'm taking a semester off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually doing the same thing, sort of. I'm trying to get my PhD in psychology, and I just take my summers off at this point because I can't handle a summer semester. I just go crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot to take on. I was listening to that stream today, and what was the British Muslim guy? What was his name?
Fahad.
He was just too annoying to listen to. He reminded me of those, the Arabs, the Muslims that debate in that park in London, and they just scream at each other all the time. The Speaker's Corner in London. He just reminded me of those Muslims that just scream at each other constantly.
Yeah, literally he could. Fahad would get so many YouTube views if he was filmed at Speaker's Corner. He's perfect, exactly. But the thing is, those people at Speaker's Corner are less like degenerate than him. He's closer to me in my past life, quote unquote, in a lot of ways. Like he has that kind of like urbanized, modernized streak, while a lot of people at Speaker's Corner are, like these straight edge types. He was like talking about drinking tequila and whatnot, and it was like, he is really just the typical. I mean, he's not the typical. He's eccentric. He's unique. He's not the typical anything. But there are archetypical things about him. Like, have you ever met someone like him? Because see, the thing is, I don't come across a lot of people like Fahad because I live in New York City.
Let me ask you, Babylonian, did you just meet Fahad tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
We just wandered in here.
Lines up with a timeline of events that he said also occurred on your live stream. I don't think he knows that you're down with the whole race realism thing. I don't think. I don't.
What
think
do you mean
race?
Well, what do you mean race realism, dude? Because here's the thing. I just believe. Okay, yeah, I believe anthropology exists. Like, so what? Who cares? So does he. It's like he's not. He is. Trust me when I say he is not going to say, "Oh, anthropology isn't real." Trust me on that. Did you hear the things he was saying? He came in and he started being more quote unquote race realist than anyone. Like, did you see where he was driving the conversation at certain points? Just pointing out.
No, I understand.
I'm inviting him now.
But the specific point, by the way, the specific point that I am pointing to is how he reacted when the whole when the KKK joke was said. Like,
no, see, that's the thing is he said he's an anti-racist. That was so funny. Is like, oh, he's an anti-racist, and the next moment he's like, oh, like let's talk shit about some people we can really agree on. It's like sub-Saharan Africa. It's so funny. He's just so what a character. Lolo, what did you think of the stream? I'm curious to hear what you thought of. Yeah, what do you think of Norvin? And same with you, Ken. Like not just Norvin, but all these people. I mean, you've got a whole colorful cast of characters. Luke, like. See, it's interesting. Luke, I feel like half the audience is just there to psychoanalyze Luke.
Luke Ford, to me, he just seems
Luke is the heel. Luke is the heel of his own show, and that's why it's so delightful. To a degree,
I could see that. I could see he's a lighthearted heel.
Exactly. No, Luke is brilliant. I just think
I was just going to say with Luke, he's just the mentality I feel like I would have to adopt if I was going to be someone who hosted a show regularly. That is exactly the mentality. Because if you look at his posture, what he was doing, he was standing up, he was getting energetic, he was while
Alexander technique. You better just start doing Alexander technique. This will fix all your problems.
But you watch when he was talking with Cater and about the Muay Thai, and he was getting up and he was doing his little joke about the And that was good. That was energetic. That's how you engage an audience. You get, it doesn't matter what you do, you just move your body around while you're talking. It's like he treated Google Hangouts like it was a stage show and he was giving a speech, but he was also, it was very casual still. And I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I'm curious to hear what you think, Lola, because I always see you in the chat and you've said some pretty funny things. So, but I've never heard you actually articulate it beyond like 200 character limit.
Sorry, I actually wasn't listening to what you guys were saying right now because I've never actually been on a stream before. So I'm just reading all these things that are popping up on my phone. There's all these pop-ups on my phone that are going, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, updated version, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I haven't been listening to the last couple of minutes of what you've been saying. Could you put it in a question?
No, I was just going to say, what do you think of the cast of characters on the Luke Ford show? Any favorites? Any favorite heels? Any favorite protagonists? Who do you root for?
They're amazing. I like Duvid. I think he's a very nice man. I've met a lot of men like him. Where I live, there's a lot of Jewish people, and I've met a lot of men like him. I like Luke. He seems like a guy who's really trying hard to develop some virtue, and that's very admirable. It'll be nice to see what he's like 5 years from now, because it's hard to change in you'd be, what, 50 now? 50, 40 maybe? Not sure. Who else?
Neuroplasticity will not be kind to him. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's a lot harder to... He's had a very interesting life, I think. Who else is cool? I liked it when they had E. Michael Jones on.
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago. I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked him. I wish he'd be on again. He's a very interesting man. Yeah, that's about all I can think of at the moment. But yeah, I enjoy watching and getting into the chat there. But yeah, so who do you like?
Ooh, honestly, I generally haven't found any people who I really dislike or find tedious or unpleasant on the show. To everyone, see, the thing is, some people, when they come in, I am really, really just terrible first impression. I'm just like, who is this guy? He's talking shit, complete idiot. You know, by the third time I hear him, I love him. And sometimes it's even like who they are in the chat. For instance, Brundlefly, the first time I met him, he was like, oh, Babylonian Hebrew, this dude brings nothing to the conversation. And like, yeah, it's true, I bring nothing to the conversation, but it's like, who are you to fucking say that? Like, at least bring something better if you're going to say that. And same with who are these other people? Who is it? Like, the first time I met Al, I didn't realize it was Harlem Venison, because I knew of Harlem Venison like through his writing and his blogging for a while, but I didn't know that Al Stankard was Harlem Venison. So I was like, I was just joining in and I was hearing everyone saying, oh, who is this like fed soy boy? And I just kind of like joined in and I was like, oh yeah, like this dude is like some globalist humanitarian shill. Not quite, but like, you know who the guy I'm talking about, right? Like that Al Stankard. Did you see him? Either of you?
No, I don't remember him.
Yeah, Harlem Venison. Yeah, it was a minor episode. Yeah, who else is there? You've got Rodney Martin, classic, very charismatic. You've got Norvin. Let's see. Chat talks about Norvin. Is Norvin even real?
I will say the first episode of Alt-Right Tonight, or the Luke Ford show, whatever you want to call it, the first episode I watched was the one with you and Cater on it, and then I watched the latest one as well. That's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, the chat, I'm not sure how the chat responded to Cater. I think the chat thought that Cater was a bit didactic. Just my take. Let's see. Fahad.
But what
sorry. No, please go ahead.
What I ultimately realized from really hearing not just you, but also Cater and I would say Luke Ford as well, but a lot of these people is just realizing how much work I have to do to establish not my views, but a portfolio of my views online. That's sort of why I'm trying to do the vlog series. But it just just have that portfolio online of my underlying philosophical building block beliefs. So then when I do political stuff, it's not that scary. It's not that, oh, what the fuck? This is a huge transition. How could he? No, it's just like, oh, this is, you see, if you followed A, you get to B. Oh, A to B. But it really did make me realize how you guys spent your time online wisely, basically, is what it made me realize. Not to kiss your ass, but you did. You spent it very, very wisely.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, I think, starting out listening to all this political stuff, and you have to sort of have a sense inside of you of what is right, and then you have to listen a lot and read a lot and research a lot. So, like you said, have like an arsenal of, well, not really arguments, of reasons why you think that way, because we are in a bit of a culture war. We are trying to convince people, in a sense, or, try and make people think in a different way.
Well,
So,
yeah, you're describing the sort of credible nature of existence and the sort of practical nature of existence, I should say. And then that is the birth of one of my primary philosophies, which is sort of the replacement of logical, well, I should say the proper term would be minimization of, minimizing of logical thought and logical extrapolation, and replacing it with scientific method and actual experimentation and scientific knowledge.
So
Doing
basically, like autism and what's going on right now.
Yes, like autism, but not
Yeah.
autism,
we're all a bit
because
Turbo Spurg.
not turbo. I will say this: it's not just that. You include pathos with your ethos. You just replace the logic.
Only pathos. No anything. Only pathos. Pure.
Why?
Just go Fahad.
Go Fahad.
Go
Fahad
Fahad.
nationalism. Everyone, we're doing Fahad nationalism.
I mean,
Nothing.
okay, here's the thing about Luke. Okay, what was I going to say?
Luis, hi Luis, we're doing Fahad nationalism.
Yeah, I was going to make a point about Luke Ford, but I forgot what it was. Something about Luke Ford and just like how he curates the most interesting people. Okay, Luke Ford is a fan. This isn't my description. This is something that someone else told me in a private conversation. Okay, so before I get into the main thing that I'm going to talk about, I just want to say Luke Ford is a fan. He's a fan of many different things. He's or sort of a fan, a critic, but a not a bad kind of critic, not a kind of critic like Rodney, where he really does kind of aim to destroy the people he critiques. A bit more of a gossip blogger, as it were. But more than that, he's got a journalistic mind. He's just such an interesting character. Anyway, the Luke Ford stream. Everyone there, I feel like there's a tacit acknowledgement between every single person on that show. There's this, and it's slightly tenuous at times because of this, but basically everyone is just going there to gain something for themselves. They want to shield their ideology, or they want to convince people of certain viewpoints, or they want to like nurse their wounded ego, or they just want an outlet to vent, or they want to gain like subs, fame, popularity, money, their moment in the limelight, whatever. I mean, not money. You're not going to get money for being on the show, but you know what I mean. Like, everyone there is kind of coming there with their own, I guess, agenda, their own opinion. Some people go there with the agenda of just like having fun, having a laugh. And like sometimes I bring that, and maybe that's not like the best attitude, but I think like there's sort of this tacit, silent acknowledgement of this. And it's really interesting, but it's like everyone there has, even when people agree, seem to agree on most things, they'll find a point of disagreement. It's pretty much great because, everyone is obviously like unique in terms of like just their entire conception of reality and the world and how it works and their base conceptions and morality. So it's, yeah, exactly. So it's like everyone.
It's a great example of freedom of association in the new age. Yeah.
Well, here's what it's like: it's a bunch of people. Basically, every single one of them effectively has a different opinion, different conception of the world and morality, and their own goal, their own agenda. And yeah, there is a lot of like self-interest or whatever, group interest, whatever you want to perceive going on there, that's occurring. But it's super I just think it's super interesting just to watch it play out, even on like a psychological angle. Like someone should write about this one day. I really, really hope that Luke is, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it. Maybe or maybe not even Luke, but someone should write a book on this. I think that Luke Ford should either do not an autobiography, but like write a portion, like a portional autobiography on at least this portion of his life, like this sort of streaming thing, because, or at least once it's sort of concluded, I guess, as it were. But or maybe someone else should write about it, because I just think it's super super interesting. Like Monique, Dennis, fascinating people. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to monologue there. I mean, I did, but pardon.
Oh no, I was just saying that it was a beautiful example of freedom of association in the modern age. Also, the fact that you have people who come to the same fundamental conclusions based on the practical experiences they have throughout life, and the extrapolations of those experiences. Yeah, what say based on a shared human instinct without. Yeah, so that's something interesting. I guess that's sort of a universal. Well, you don't usually talk about universals these days, and I don't talk about universals these days, but it's something like coming to the just base common sense conclusions, but then having these fundamental philosophical disagreements. So that's quite nice. Like for instance, I disagree with Cater about a lot of things, but
Yeah, who
ultimately,
doesn't?
fucking shit. Um, the I'm sorry, Cater.
I mean, listen, I'm not every like an esoteric neo-futurist brutalist architecture aficionado, okay? I mean, that's not going to be a popular opinion anywhere
who starts
necessarily.
every sentence like this? But yeah. I'm sorry. It's just no, but I do like the times we're living in, and that's really just what I wanted to say. I like the times we're living in terms of freedom of association. I was talking about this briefly on Pill Eater's show, how we do have this sort of trifecta of people in this new, what if you go by Dr. Steve Turley, what he calls the post-globalist age. I don't know if you keep up with him. But basically an age when people are disillusioned with globalism, and you have these sort of three groups of people. You have, okay, when I say these three groups of people, I'm saying this is what I'm saying, and I'm correlating this to the three things you have to defend to always kind of be the counterculture, and that would be art, free speech, and science. And if you defend those three things, then ultimately you always stay the counterculture, because those three things will always be suppressed by a dogmatic group, whether that dogmatic group is secular or religious or any group whatsoever. But it's just any group in power, because ultimately those three things need to be suppressed to some degree for them to retain power. But when you do that, you fundamentally get associated with health. Art is free mental health and emotional health. Science is free physical health and information for health. Speech is a fundamental underlying spiritual health. It's all expression as well. So then when it comes to expression, you have sort of these three groups in the modern post-globalist age in these different sort of nationalist spheres. One of them isn't nationalist, of course. That would be the free speech people. That would be effectively the classical liberals. Then you have the civ nationalists in the cultural sphere, so that correlates back to art. And then you have the racial identitarians or nationalists or race realists or whatever term you would like to use for people who've studied race and have informed their views based off of the information they've gotten from that.
Dude, okay, everything, I literally agree with everything you said, but you're you're not conflating, and that's the problem, is a lot of people do this autistic, I'm sorry to autistic people. Like, they probably wouldn't like my stream. Someone chastised me for this in Discord. Not that I'm being mean to autists. It's just like I need to change my insults. It's just like there are some good autists out there. I need to keep it lively. I've got one in the chat with me right now talking to an autist. It's like basically. Point is, like, you have these people who are like, I don't know. We live in an age of people. I think that's a good analysis, but people conflate the arguments for like self-determination and like autonomy and like indigenous cultures or like traditionalism and aspects of that, and like being pro-identity, or pro-indigenous, anti-colonial, whatever, anti whatever you want to call it. They conflate that with being with the sort of human anthropology, biodiversity, evolutionary psychology. I think that's totally unnecessary. Those are two unrelated arguments. Yeah, they might be able to use to kind of bolster each other, sort of, but it's like I don't see any reason to bring those arguments together. You don't need to, and I think that you make stronger arguments when you keep them pure. And also, I just like to be polite. Depending on who I'm talking to, and that's just me. That's just my take. But here's the thing. I want to ask both of you. We live in an age of people literally being like ideologically influenced by YouTube videos and YouTube streams. Like, what is this? Like what have you guys? Do you think that's true? Because like I genuinely feel like that is the case. It's
yeah, of course it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
Of course it is. But this is the technology. I mean, before people were influenced by reading books or watching TV or going to the library and looking things up for themselves. And this is the new technology. This is how we reach people now. So,
yeah, it's the public space, like JF says.
It's the new Agora, like someone said about Luke Ford's stream mockingly, but it's true. It's pseudo mockingly. I mean, I don't know. It is true. It is like the funny thing is, I know YouTube does get censored, and like I'm doing this off my second channel, for instance, not Babylonian Hebrew. But the point is, like it's pretty much this is the place where people go like stream just I guess YouTube, because this is just a place where people have always sort of spoke their mind. It used to be like just someone ranting into a camera with like no editing, but it's perhaps gotten a bit better with like the live streams and stuff. I mean, it's just I think it's kind of a shame in a lot of ways, because I think it would be better if people like listened to lectures or read books, or better yet had like conversations and dialogues with people in depth. But I mean, that's a lot to hope for, and like perhaps in this modern age, people should be lucky to have, I mean, anyone should be lucky to have the opportunity to like have access to something like YouTube. Like, it's nice while it lasts until it gets completely zucked or whatever.
Or something else will come along to replace it. There's clever people out there.
You can argue things kind of already have. I mean, what I've heard a lot is that Steemit and DTube is really growing.
Yeah, dude, sure. Yeah. Steemit and DTube. No, it's YouTube. Like, no, those things are not going to take off at least anytime soon, unless something drastic happens, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. No offense, Steemit and DTube.
If they totally purge everyone, then something else will take off. I mean, you got to fill that vacuum with something.
All of you go off. I'm gonna pull a Luke Ford and start interviewing. I'm curious. How has each one of you been ideologically influenced by YouTube videos and live streams, and in what capacity? Because for me, it was more about just interacting with people. I talked to people, found interesting people. But I'm curious what happened to you guys. Because like, did that happen? Did that happen to you, or did that happen to anyone you know? Because for me, it wasn't really that. It was really just more reading and reading books and talking to people is really what kind of shifted me mentally. And by the time I was already kind of like in a place, I sort of came to be on the internet. But even then, I had some ideological transformation just based on people I was talking to. But I was never really a big watcher of videos until recently. But I'm curious, at least not in large quantities.
I'm definitely an auditory learner, and for this period of time that you knew me when I was back in the skeptic community, I've come a long way. But during that time, I was basically in a period of my life where I was just coming out of the phase where I was.
What is a skeptic? A skeptic is just someone who supports like status quo and science.
Yeah. Okay. When we say skeptic community,
cool. Like skeptic just means like, oh, I'm big brained. Ha, feminists are dumb. It's just stupid, like hackneyed nonsense. That's basically skeptics. When I hear that word, I think like the amazing atheist, degenerate. Kind of like, like annoying people who are like, oh, I think I'm so smart because I hold X, Y, and Z enlightenment principles. I'm so brilliant. It's like I'm an individualist. Like just sort of dumb, stuff like that. Like that's how I perceive skeptics. Is that incorrect?
No, it's not incorrect at all. It's it's exactly the mentality. It is smart, stupid people. That is effectively what it is. It's a me, an intellectual, a skeptic of the times. Let's debunk feminism 3,000 more times. Like that. That's literally the parody song. Is literally it exactly. That's why I always used to listen to that after I got out of that community, because it was spot on. But no, after the end of my phase there, and I was just going to my first semester of college, is sort of when I was coming out of that. I am largely an auditory learner. Without lecture series, without audiobooks, I wouldn't have been able to move on. And fundamentally, YouTube was my main avenue for that. I was also listening to several different political sort of personalities at the time. And eventually, what pulled me out of the sort of skinhead phase of my life was was genuinely, it was Jordan B. Peterson's talks, and it was Jordan B. Peterson's lectures. So
You're a skinhead?
I was going through a phase, ma'am.
See, this is great. This is great. I'm recreating the Luke Ford show. Here we go. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about your childhood. Open up to us. Let's
Do you mean it in the same the skinhead in the same way as, say, British or Australia, like somebody who's really racist? Or
I was a violent, hate-filled sociopath who had incorrect views on how to deal with people of different ethnic origins.
Dude, people don't understand it. There were like black skinheads. There were like, weren't there like black skinheads in like the UK and stuff? Or is that just propaganda? I don't know what the truth is anymore.
It was a music thing, and weirdly enough, it came out of sort of like a reggae-tinged sort of underground thing, and it was more of
it's kind of Afro-Caribbean, you know.
Yeah, it was like a working class, like a tough guy type of thing, an alternative to like all the long-haired hippie rock, but it wasn't explicitly racist. I mean, they still have them. They're like skinheads that are of like the fashion and the music. It was sort of co-opted by white nationalism later, more towards the late 70s and early 80s. The British National Party had a lot to do with it. I've seen a documentary, something I've always known about, for being in the music scene, and I know about skinheads and boy music, and it's not always a white power thing, and it wasn't originally, but yeah, there's documentaries on it to kind of map it out. It goes back to the late 60s.
Interesting. So what got you out of the skinhead movement?
It was a lot of Jordan B. Peterson's sort of. Okay, it wasn't really a skinhead.
Oh, dude, this is just like a parade of nonsense, isn't it? Please continue.
What do you mean parade of nonsense?
Jordan B. Peterson, dude, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here of like enlightenment, self-help.
Look,
listen, Jordan Peterson is super smart. Okay, nothing but respect for the guy. But the thing is, like, individualism, like clean your room and get a job isn't gonna solve any big societal problems. Okay,
like some people really need to hear that. Really?
Yeah, no, that's the thing is literally it's like, be a better like cog in the system. Okay, yeah, cool.
Babylonian.
I mean, maybe like I'm saying that from a place of privilege, sure, but it's like, it's like, yeah, you're not like that's such a. I mean, listen, he preaches good things, but like you need to go so far beyond that. Like, yeah, clean your room and then like do something, be part of something greater than yourself.
Yeah, but you have to remember he was a practicing psychologist as well. So these are things that he would have been constantly saying to really very unwell people. True.
Well, Babylonian.
That's true. All of his advice is individual aims. I apologize. I should have seen that. That was very ignorant of me. Thank you.
You got to understand. I was coming out of this phase that was ultimately a reaction to, it was a reaction to a lot of new information, but it was also a reaction to feeling sort of betrayed. And part of that was the shut-in thing, right? It was sort of a forced shut-in for 2 years of my life where I had no choice in being a shut-in in times when I should have been getting a proper high school education. And that was not good. But after that, then I went into sort of that skinhead mentality after basically being driven insane from solitary confinement. I had to recover from that. And a good step to recovering from that is focusing on yourself, what you're good at, and cleaning your room. Now, funny enough, whenever I bring this up, people think, oh, so you listen to Jordan B. Peterson, now you want to be a psychologist. No, I was always good at that science and had good, what would you say? I had a mentality that was good for studying that science. And that is something that I gave up on and got reignited towards through Jordan B. Peterson. It was something that I gave up on because the only psychologist that I had ever really met was my psychology professor, who was also a rad femme. And it was like, oh, this is the world that I'm going into. What's the point? So it was easy to disenfranchise me back then as well. But after I had that time of radical individualism to counteract that, and Babylonian, you heard me talk before, this is what sent me into the MGTOW phase. And that MGTOW phase gave me this.
MGTOW is an internet subculture. I've never met a MGTOW in my life, or at least I've never ran into a person who genuinely espouses and advocates and lives by the MGTOW ideology at any point in my life. Like MGTOWs are like ANCAPs. They only exist on the internet. Like you never actually see them out, really. Sorry, continue.
But basically, this hyper-individualistic mentality that I went through eventually made me self-improve. And that time as a MGTOW, let me tell you, when you get rid of the sexual drive, more importantly, when you fight the sexual drive, what you find is that freedom you had when you were a prepubescent child comes back with all the knowledge you have of life in your sort of current self. And if that does
did you just like refrain from anything?
No. What that does is reinforce this sort of common sense position that you couldn't take advantage of. It's like it destroys laziness from that effect. You start to work out more. You start to work on your professional career more. You start to do all these things out of this kind of, I don't know, self-induced reaction, like a dynamite explosion of like just efficiency. But anyway, after I came out of that, I became homeless. No. But
so you kind of sublimate your energies towards other things.
Yeah. But after I came out of all of that, then I finally reestablished my ethnic identity. Then I finally, after working on myself, after figuring out where I want my life to go, after getting into bodybuilding, getting into trying to become a
You're moving back to the fatherland, motherland, whatever.
Yes, the old country. But and saying that I do fundamentally know I need to move back to the old country if I'm serious about any logical follow through on my positions, which I shouldn't be serious about. But also I can't shy away from the word logical just because I preach anti-reason positions. It's complicated. But that's basically my full story. It's a very, very shortened summary. I mean, I doubt you want to hear about like, and this is 3 chapters of me being beaten half to death in a Baptist church environment as a young boy. Yes. No, you don't want to hear that. So next person, please.
I might, but yeah, sure. Go ahead, Lola or Lewis.
Lewis can go next.
I guess.
Okay, I don't mean to put you in the spotlight. You don't have to go if you don't want to. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, I'll go. It was what the question was about YouTube videos influencing people.
Yeah. Have they to any degree? Have you been like ideologically, philosophically, theologically, spiritually influenced by YouTube videos? Has it made you change your positions on anything, even even like minor things, like factual little things? Like, has that happened at all?
Well, changing my positions, not at all. Actually, it just kind of bolstered them. Then I had better talking points and a more fleshed out of what I was already thinking. I really haven't had any wide changes in the way I believed in a really long time at all. It was just I never really thought there was any room for it. So it sort of feels like everything else kind of caught up to my worldview, and then
That's interesting. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, well, they provided statistics and for race realism and things like that. I didn't really go and look that up. Oh, I wonder, what the crime rate is, this and that, or IQ levels and distribution amongst ethnicities. There's all these things I had always suspected, around multiculturalism, basically. And yeah, I mean, pretty much. And it helped me argue those things. It really did. It didn't change anything, but it just sort of kind of put me in touch with other people that had those ideas, helped me articulate them, basically, make better arguments. That's about it. It didn't really change anything. It just kind of supercharged it, basically.
Interesting. Huh. And you have a super interesting life. Like, we don't need to necessarily go into that now, but you've had a crazy, fascinating life.
I mean, I don't mind it. If someone was to bring it up, I wouldn't avoid it. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, if the chat has any questions, I'll let you know. Or if anyone else does, go ahead. Or if anyone wants to continue on the thing I was saying, Lola, if you do want to go ahead, you can if you'd like.
Oh, I started questioning feminism, and I was just looking on YouTube one night, and I saw that girl. What's her name? Girl Writes What? Karen Strawn.
Oh, no
And she was
way.
kind
Yeah,
of,
Karen Strawn.
yeah, she was articulating basically everything I couldn't about how wrong feminism was. And I just sort of consumed all of her videos. And then I got more into the conservative point of view. And now I'm just learning, basically trying to get a little bit from everyone that I can. I listen to Luke Ford a lot, and because my great grandmother was Jewish, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This guy's converted from a Seventh-day Adventist or whatever it is to being Jewish, and it was the kind of opposite. In my case, my grandmother converted to being Catholic, and I thought, it'd be interesting to find out why somebody would want to be Jewish, because it's so hard to be Jewish,
Yeah, I even hear that in more traditional communities, the rabbi has to turn you away several times during an Orthodox conversion or attempt to dissuade you or make it more difficult.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be interesting to listen to him, and I'm quite interested in nationalism. I think it's important for people to understand their background and be proud of who they are and be proud of their ancestors and that sort of thing. That's the one thing I disagree with Jordan Peterson. He said something about, you shouldn't be proud of what your ancestors achieved, but I think it's okay to be proud of what your ancestors achieved. I'm very proud of my father's side of the family, the Irish Catholic side of the family. And, so I'm just basically on a learning curve at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So, yeah, inverse Luke Ford background. See, here's the thing is, thing about the ancestry is the Jordan Peterson individualism is just so stupid. It's like, oh, don't be proud of your ancestors, only not even proud, but like don't recognize things of your ancestors, only like recognize the accomplishments of yourself. You're just this atomized little individual. Oh, it's like, oh, that's like just such a bleak worldview. It's like, no, you're part of greater concentric circles of humanity, and you're part of, like, Fahad was going on and on about tribes, and what he was trying to say is like extended family, like, and that's really all that a people is, going out further and further and further. It goes like your nuclear family, your extended family, your broader related families, intermixed families, and then you go out and eventually you get to an entire people of people. Then you go on a broader level, you get to groups of peoples, then you get to continent levels, so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, no one anywhere in the world really, except certain like weird people who have been influenced by like this kind of enlightenment individualist nonsense, like, it was the standard to be proud of and recognize the achievements of your ancestors, because who wouldn't? They're the reason you're here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our ancestors had to get through things like plagues and wars and starvation and really cold winters to get us here. So why wouldn't we be proud of them?
Yeah, true.
It
Not
just
where I
makes
live,
sense.
but that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Some of us.
pretty bunk on those points to say that. I mean, I think it was Millennial Woes or somebody had really broken down this whole thing, saying Europeans should be proud of their ancestors and whatnot, because Peterson is like he's like some honorary member of some Indian tribe up there in Canada, and I don't think he's giving those the same advice to just disregard their ancestors. That'd be the last thing they would want to do. So I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's some things about Jordan Peterson that are really great, and I really love that there's somebody out there encouraging young men, because they really need it. They've been neglected for so long, for decades, in fact. And I really think it's great that he's doing that. But some of the things he says, I'll just kind of slap my head and go, what are you thinking,
Yeah. I mean, that's everyone, you can't agree with everyone all the time. I'm curious, what were your what did you dislike about feminism? Why were you critical of feminism, and from what angle? What brought you in that direction?
Well, I read all of those silly books that you're supposed to read when you're a teenager, like The Female Eunuch and that other woman, what's her name, Naomi Wolf. I can't remember what her book was called anyway. And then when I went to uni, they started talking about women's health and, you know, how funding should be given to women's health. And I kind of had a look at the statistics on men's health as well. And men's health is in a lot worse state than women's health. And they're younger, don't go to the doctor as often, all these terrible statistics. And I just thought, why are they banging on about women's health when men's health is just abysmal? You know, you just question things, and you have this, like I said before, this sense about what is right. And if you're honest with yourself, you've really got to pursue it. You know, you've got to find out the answer. So, yeah, just stuff that happened at uni. And basically all the radical feminists I knew, or all the women that I knew that espoused feminism, were really miserable. And I didn't want to be like that. I want to be happy.
Yeah. I like it when people give anecdotes on my stream, just saying. If either three of you would like to, at any point, drop an interesting, brief anecdote, please go ahead.
Lola's... just really quickly, Lola's. What we see is we see that really with the entire left wing just spectrum in general. There's this weird culture of bragging about how depressed you are, you know. And this
I don't think that's a broad generalization. I mean, I don't think do Stirnerites brag about how depressed they are. Are Stirnerites left wing? I don't know. Sorry, maybe you're right. Forgive me.
You must have heard those dreadful women just carrying on about, oh, men are bastards and all that sort of thing, just whinging all the time about everything. Yeah, and just, yeah. So I think that they do tend to be a little bit more whiny and whingy and unhappy, and yeah, you just don't want to be like that, do you?
I don't know. To me, feminism always just seemed like a Marxist theory applied to gender relations, so I always hated it.
I mean, I grew up in an environment where like 13-year-old girls were getting pregnant, but also like 11-year-old boys were being harassed by the police. So I always kind of associated feminism with what other kids told me about it when I was a kid, which is that I associated with the stories that I heard when I was a kid from like Mexican kids who would talk about their mother framing their father for rape, which is very common in Houston. It's the whole feminist agenda thing is very common in Houston.
Feminist agenda. That sounds nefarious. See, this is what I'm curious to hear what you think motivates this whole thing. What do you think of? Why would, for instance, like someone advocate for women's health when, let's say, men's health is doing objectively worse? Like, what do you think motivates that? Because I mean, I've never really psychologically. I mean, I've never attempted to get to the bottom of it. Like, I come from a family full of feminists, but I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are. I generally tend to stay away from feminism because, like, if a man ever ideologically approaches feminism, it's just like, I mean, I've read a lot of the stuff, but it's like I never really talked about it. It's just like, you know, whatever.
Oh no, it's
not
very
particular interest to me.
It's very simple evolutionary psychology. Why do we care more about women in general as a society than we do about men? Oh, it's very simple. I mean, just
you're going MGTOW gynocentric theory on me.
No. Well, it's not wrong. The conclusion.
Well, yeah. Oh, here you go. Okay, hit me.
Fuck. No, I'm saying the conclusions that MGTOW come to are wrong, and whatever MGTOW is, they're probably wrong too. But the conclusions are wrong. Science is not. But, you know, there are several different avenues and justifications for the different behaviors MGTOW complain about. But the fundamental reason for that in evolutionary psychology is just that, well, we tend to associate women with the evolution of women, and our best guess towards, or right now our best guess in biology as to why women evolved with the way they did is to accompany the 9 months of pregnancy. And that's also what men and women associate women with. They associate with them. I mean, you sort of see this in modern rhetoric.
This might be one factor of several, but there might be some others at play.
No, I understand.
Like, that's the thing with like evolutionary psychology is you can't reduce it down to like one specific thing. Evolutionary psychology is valid, but yeah, continue. I'm interested.
I know that there are multiple things. There are always multiple things. But in this case, we do associate that. You see this in modern rhetoric, where we sort of have begun to, and you sort of see this in many different paintings as well, from just all throughout history. You see women not as the incubators of life, but as the creators of life. Men not even needed, men not even involved. They are the creators of life. And it is that way, which is, if you think about the fetus being formed in the womb, that is a natural human view to hold. And then what do we think of men as? Well, men are generally apathetic to other men's needs, as women are also generally apathetic. And this is based, this is evolutionary. We need to throw men into the cannon fodder to keep the civilization alive. We need to sacrifice men. I mean, the weirdest thing about feminism is that it's actually just I'd say it's a giving into this sort of natural drive humans have to woman worship and sort of be apathetic towards men. It's easier to demonize men, for both men and women.
Woman worship, dude, what's wrong with that? Sounds cool. Like, so what? We also worship men. We worship everything. Like it's just like, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Okay, one person. Okay, see, here's the thing. I have heard this theory from a dude who's into like all this Mingdao stuff. He says that feminists are just women who hate weak men or beta males or whatever. Largely, a lot of them, not all of them, but like a large portion of the people who claim to be feminists or are sort of semi-feminist, they just hate weak men. They don't actually hate men. Is this true? This is also
no. They hate men. They hate men.
Do they really?
Oh yeah, no. You see, okay. So they hate men.
Their fathers. They hate their brothers. They hate the men in their own family.
Yeah, but they interact with men. They'll even like date and have sexual intercourse with them. Sometimes a lot.
No, so I need to be specific on this. Firstly, what type of feminist are you talking about?
Anyone who labels themselves that, people in college, like uni girls who call themselves.
Well, I will say,
like Wesleyan or some shit. I don't know.
There is this sort of mentality in the sort of third wave feminist crowd. In that mentality, it's genuinely a hatred towards women, but the hatred is generally a projection towards the men they are attracted to. That's usually what you see. But it can also be the result of an abusive father figure, and then there's that conflation of the...
there might be something to that as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's like this conflation with competent men and tyrannical men. They don't know how to tell them apart.
It's because there's like they blur together, and like sometimes they go hand in hand. I love competent tyranny. I want to be ruled by a competent tyrant. I just want to lay back and have like a nice. That's all I want. I'm just self-motivated. All I want is to live in a nice, healthy civilization where I can raise my kids and sort of sit back and plug into a society and not have to struggle to define your identity, define who you are by like oh yeah, meet with the book club, go play hockey. Like, I want to do all those things, but it's like I hate the struggle to plug into something that people, especially in places like New York, have. It's like, no, I just want to naturally kind of insert myself into a pre-existing civilization and just play a part in it, play a role in it, feel like I'm contributing to something greater, have a legacy, like acknowledge my ancestors. Like, it's not like it's like it I just want to. Tyranny is sometimes good. Sometimes it's good to just have someone take over and to just, if it's a competent person, does tyranny imply something inherently bad? It means, it does, but it's like, not tyranny, but like, you know what I mean? I dictatorial rule, autocratic, theocratic, not theocratic.
Yeah, you're talking about
autocratic. I'm just spewing words, but
no. In terms of archetypes, what you're referring to is the general view of the father. This idea of the guiding, wise old man who's also very controlling, but knows when and what to control. But when that gets abused, we call that the sort of tyrant or sun eater archetype, and then when it's done well, we call that the wise king. So that's sort of the Jungian archetypes of the father.
Do you think you Americans just miss not being part of the Commonwealth or something? Do you think you miss royalty and monarchy, and there's some kind of primal need for that sort of thing?
in my personal opinion, the reason that, like, for me as a personal person who is an American who plans on repatriating to Italy
Okay.
after they get their PhD, I will say that the reason I'm moving there is not, well, I don't really know, because you see, actually, you bring up one of my biggest criticisms of the Sicilian mafia, because that's my ancestry. It's Sicily from Palermo. And I generally, I have this big criticism of them. It's the height of arrogance to try to recreate your culture when moving to another culture. It's like, no, this is the whole thing. And it's that taken to the nth degree, because ultimately, if you want to retain that in a new culture, then what you have to do is you have to force it on others. You have to force it. If it doesn't work any other way, if you don't force it, if you don't tyrannically impose it on others, it will not work. And obviously, the tyranny itself needs, it needs a good stamina to it to turn into not tyranny and then become the norm. But the reality of the Sicilian mob is that was their downfall. But and yes, I do think there is a fundamental there's a genetic sort of European need for hierarchy. There's a European need to know you are part of a whole. That whole has an ascending top-down rank where you fit in that rank, and in that rank you would fight and die to protect your position in that rank.
Did you say something about Europeans, or was I like missing?
No, I said Europeans.
Okay, because I think that this is just also a universally true thing. The thing about hierarchy, like hierarchy is universal. Also,
fair enough. Men. There's this thing.
I mean,
about,
you're talking about your specific example, like you're a European guy, so that makes sense. Like I get it, or European ancestry guy. But like this is also universally true, and I think that hierarchy should be imposed. If anything, like maybe an even stricter hierarchy would be productive for some, like let's say,
I think a stricter hierarchy is productive.
Well, like especially like let's say Iraq, Fahad, like with all the Fahads of the world running around. You see, like the Middle East is this weird thing. It's like you've got Babylonian Hebrews, you've got Fahads, an interesting mix. It's like you need to have a society where everyone stays in their lane, as Luke would say, but also contributes to part of a larger whole without there being some sort of massive societal unrest. And that usually requires some sort of like binding theocratic or authoritarian system from a purely pragmatic point of view. Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you made me imagine us dropping Fahad with like a parachute onto Saudi Arabia, and then we time skip 3 years and he's taken over the country. Fahad nationalism.
Fahad nationalism. I see.
This summer,
let's see. We have some comments in the chat. Kermit the Bog. Autism is a superpower. Black skinheads will lead white nationalists to the promised land. That reminds me of a video by Harlem Benison that I think he called it like the Final Negro or something like that. It's interesting. Let's see. The left wing does currently fetishize mental illnesses. Is that true? It's a broad statement. Perhaps, yeah, to a degree. I guess I've seen that happen.
I mean, you also see this in a lot of TV shows with the fetishizing of mental illnesses.
I understand why people think about it. People are attracted to things that are quite similar to them, yet also in critical ways dissimilar. It's the nice sort of classic compare and contrast. It's always stimulating. It's people are drawn to things like that. People are drawn to things that where they can see facets of themselves in it, but also something is there that's completely alien. It's sort of that interesting contrast. Let's see. Luke Ford's channel made me realize the Anglos are a lost tribe of Israel after I converted. Luke Ford's channel made me realize that the Anglos are a lost tribe of Israel, so I converted after watching 5 minutes of his videos. I see. The left one. Women are a protected class to carry the species. It's an interesting way of framing it. Women are the protected class of humanity to carry the species. It's an interesting framing of life. All right. I don't understand any of this feminist MGTOW shit. I'm kind of Chad, so I never had a problem with the ladies. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I think that, I said it in the chat here, and I'm going to go Luke Ford here, and when I say status, it's not like, I'm not like super caught up in it, I guess, in the same way that Luke is, but when I say status, I'm mostly talking about sort of like the basic things that might appeal to someone, like a combination of like, like looks, charisma, confidence, just general like life you know, like the ability to be like intelligent and quick-witted in conversation, things like that, funny. Like basically, men who are lower status, from my experience, generally seem to be drawn towards things like this manosphere, especially MGTOW stuff, and even the men, like their physiognomy is generally not like incredibly pleasing or incredibly perfect. Not all, but I mean, I'm talking about the people who are like fairly well known or influential people. Like at best, they're just sort of kind of like average people who generally have like sometimes slightly below average grooming, sometimes not, but it's just like I don't know. I just think that a lot of it is just sort of like it attracts a certain crowd of people, and I personally never really find it that appealing as well. But that's just because I'm sort of like an autiste, and I don't care about being like I don't care about like gender politics. It's like who cares, cool dude, like whatever. Like it's just so not interesting to me anymore. But like yeah, I mean I get it. Yeah, Bugman, Soyum. I'm curious, what do you guys think about MGTOW? MGTOW is one thing. Incels is another thing. MRAs, that's another thing. PUAs, that's another thing.
Would you like me
Neo-masculinity,
to?
that's another thing. The list goes on and on and on. It's a whole list of there's a whole list of interesting people who love to talk about men and women and gender and evolutionary psychology and theories around gender and stuff. It's cool. Like Reed Weininger, and this is also something for Wes Hartman and the other guy. It's like Reed and the other dude. What's his face? Norvin Hobbs. Like Reed Weininger. You need to understand. Like it's interesting. There's some cool theories. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just asking if you'd like me to very quickly break down the differences between MRA, MGTOW, and incel.
I mean, I know the differences, but I'm curious, like, what kind. I'm more different. Like, if you want to break it down in a detail that sort of goes beyond the veil. I mean, I know what it is: incel, involuntary celibate; MRA, people who advocate for what they perceive to be the rights of men; and Mingdao. Mingdao is uh men going their own way.
Wait,
Mingdao.
Mingdao? Oh, you mean
Mingtao.
Yeah.
Migdao, whatever they're fucking called. The Mingdao dynasty is dedicated for men who just want to do their own thing. Usually, like the highest degree to which they'll interact with women is like purely like, you know, like, oh, like what can I get out of this sexually or whatever. Like they, you know, they're very opposed to the idea of like investing money in women or getting married, incorporating women in their lives. There's a bit of crossover with the MRA stuff because a lot of them tend to be jaded by divorce or legal other sort of processes like that tend to be biased in favor of women or negative things that have happened to them, other things like that. But I also think that the thing is, I feel like an undercurrent of like not incel, but like an undercurrent of like what I perhaps will call incel light bitterness seems to run through all of this manosphere stuff, though. Quite honestly, if I'm not to be rude, but you see what I mean. Like I feel like I understand the differences. But yeah, and then Mingtao are also like some Mingtao will just completely not interact with women, and usually they're just interested in like oh men going their own way. It's literally what it sounds like. Like I'm Jigtao, I'm Jews going their own way. I want Jews to separate and create like our own civilization and thrive independently of other civilizations, and we can establish trade. But I want Jews to primarily just focus on like creating our own sort of like authentic poetry, you know, like culture. I'm saying creating culture. That's such a stupid way of thinking, but you know, like poetry, music, just like do our own thing. I just want us to like genuinely explore ourselves and flourish, as opposed to like you know, be so preoccupied with what everyone else thinks and getting all up in everyone else's affairs and geopolitics and stuff. Similar premise, right?
I would say so. When it comes to the underlying incel stuff, you see, here's the thing.
I feel like a lot of these guys are, not all of them, some of them, a lot of these guys are either bitter because of like a bad divorce, they're bitter because they're like a kind of like can't get laid basically, or awkward, and they want to, they're really, and the guy gets like sexually repressed, you know, basically it's like that sort of thing.
Well, I can tell you the reason I got involved in that. I never had bad luck with women. My thing really was this understanding of, oh, if you be around the feminist people, you end up in prison. For like, that's why I actually, you see, even when I was a MGTOW, I would get angry at other MGTOWs because they would complain about fundamental aspects of female behavior, and I would just be like, no, I just really don't want to get framed for rape. Like, I'm hyper paranoid about being framed for crimes, and I really, really don't want to get framed for rape and have my life ruined. That's not. That's like something I'd like to avoid. It's something I'd like to not have happen to me. And it's just like the problem is that I would bring up that point to people I would try to explain MGTOW to, and I would bring up that point to other MGTOW, both equally reject it and hate it on its premise. For men to accept that who are not MGTOW, they would have to accept they are in a vulnerable position in the first world, and it could damn well happen to them tomorrow. And for
Wait, what could damn well happen to them? Sorry.
being framed for rape.
Okay, yeah, that is bad, and like, yeah, Title IX is unfair, and I understand that. But so basically, any sexually active man, yeah. But isn't that more MRA because it's advocating for the rights of men on like a legal or a semi-legal institutional level? Like, what is the like MR? They blend into each other. Really,
well, no, okay. So this is what I was saying. I wasn't advocating for new laws. I was saying that as long
continuum
as
fallacy, I'm guilty of it. I'm sorry. Please continue.
no, it's fine. And don't believe in logical fallacies. If you view something as the ultimate conclusion of something, don't let people tell you it's a slippery slope, because look, the slippery slope always comes true. But the thing is, with that, it's just, oh, God, I lost my place. I'm sorry.
You were talking about MGTOW are blur, like it's blurry.
Oh,
I
right,
was saying
right.
like,
Sorry, on
dude,
the issue.
all these things kind of at a certain point blur into each other. It's all just sort of like a like gender identity politics, like with a slight undercurrent of male bitterness and like a healthy dose of legitimate resentment for like in systems that are quite indeed institutionally unfair in the Western world. For instance, things like Title IX proceedings or divorce courts or I don't know, things along those lines, etc. Also, I think that in places like India, this Mingdao type stuff is catching on. In places like East Asia, Mingdao type stuff is catching on. It's not just a Western world thing. So I was incorrect in saying that. The only reason I say it's a Western world thing is because I assume it's Anglosphere, English language, because most of the Mingdao people I know are here. But then again, I have a bias because I don't speak, like Japanese or Hindi or whatever. So, but yeah, they do sort of blur into each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I was saying was that the reason both sides can't accept it is that, for the MGTOW to accept that that is the primary issue, the primary thing that is wrong in modern society for men, it's to accept that even the MGTOW lifestyle does not keep them safe from being framed for rape. And this other thing, it's like it only changes because this is what made me birth my views. It's why, again, another one of the reasons I wanted to repatriate is like, well, let's look at the American ethnic situation. I'm trying to talk to Cater, and this is one of the issues I disagree with Cater on. If you listen to what his views on American nationalism are, when he was, I think it was with you, and he was talking about this when he was saying, "Oh, America should just have a CEO," and it's like, okay. Let me just you do you, man. You do you. And I'm just gonna that's when I get up, I calmly get up, I push in my chair and I walk away. That's when I just say there's no country. You've just admitted that there's not really a country here. And but that really it's part of it. It is part of it. It's this. There's a connection there that I forgot to make because I've been up for 48 hours, and I'm sorry.
It's all right. Don't worry. I forgive you.
I'm broken.
Recovered from a surgery. I shouldn't be streaming, but
I'm a broken clock, and Babylonian is damaged. He's battle damaged, but he's talking better than me.
Point is, Mingdao. We need to. Why aren't you MGTOW anymore? What made you MGTOW? Do you think a lot of people are any of these manosphere, male identity politics ideologies just simply because, like, I get rejected by women. Oh, like I'm not like the Chad. I can't get laid. Like,
I think
how
that
much
is
of it
a very
is
small. It's a very small minority.
No, I think it's an undercurrent. I'm saying, like, how much of this plays at least a part in the politics and identity politics of people who identify as various manosphere ideologies. Perhaps different groups more so than others within that subset. But incels, for instance, it's their entire ideology. The black pill incel types, that's their entire ideology is based off, like, I'm, basically ugly, low status, born messed up, so I'm never going to I'll never be loved, I'll never experience sexual contact, therefore, damn it all,
I mean, look,
mess up the chessboard. I can't
what
win.
I promise
Sorry,
you,
go
what
ahead.
you will see in a lot of MGTOW communities is nonstop hatred towards incels. It's nonstop hatred towards incels. They think incels are horrible. They're bad for the image of the movement. They're bad for MGTOW being advertised to other men. It's just terrible. That's sort of their view on incels. But when it comes to incels, just genuinely, their view is much more hostile, and they are a group that does not advocate getting over sexual frustration. And that's something that you will actually see in MGTOW. You'll see people advocate these methodologies, whether it's through Hermetic philosophy or through any method of getting over sexual frustration or co-opting sexual frustration into raw productivity. Like, you'll see that a lot. It's all about healthy ways to deal with stress and basically an Elliot Rodger prevention program, you could argue. They'd certainly like to get their hands on a couple of the incels and prevent them from going crazy. But
Why don't you want an incel uprising?
why don't I
It's
want
like
an
Sam
incel?
Hyde's Utopia.
Fucking shit, it's beautiful. Why don't I want an incel after the war of pink flesh when cloning technology was achieved? But that's a Sam Hyde sketch. Why don't I want
If you're just not sympathetic to the incels because you're not like physically repellent. Basically, you have good or decent physiognomy.
Well, so do
you.
you.
Appealing physiognomy. No, yeah, that's the thing. That's the point. We don't know. Like, I'm just like a normal looking guy, but the point is, I'm not a like weird, like super weird, bizarre looking. Like, I'm just like a Jewy looking Jew. It's nothing that out of the ordinary.
Babylonian,
yeah.
Babylonian. I assure you that normal looking doesn't mean anything compared to you being 6'3". I guarantee you that more than makes up for it in the eyes of most women. I
Do you think that height plays that much of a part in women's psychology?
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Height and money are the top two, and then from there it's symmetry of looks and confidence. From there it's those two.
What about you, Diaz? What are your thoughts
on incels or what? Which part
incels,
of
or what a woman's like hierarchy, what the average archetypal woman's hierarchy of things that they look for in men?
I hear height is important. They say that. I believe it. I never had a problem with that. I'm 6'3" as well. So, I mean, as far as incels go, I think a lot of them, man, are just like, they're just betas, man. And like, I don't know, maybe porn perhaps has skewed their what kind of woman that they might be after. Maybe they're not so happy with a plain Jane like they would have done back in the day.
Yeah, this is the problem. Is people need to. This is why this is always what I talk about: hierarchy in all senses of life. Luke calls it "stay in your lane," but that's such a stay in your lane, goy. I don't like that. I don't like stay in your lane. That's such a condescending way of putting it. No offense, Luke. I understand and appreciate the sentiment, but I would say it as, have decorum, have respect and reverence for hierarchy. Know your place. Know who you are, quote, above. Know who you are, quote, below. Know who you're parallel with. Just know your role. Every person, see, the concept of above and below, it's like, it doesn't matter, because even if there is sort of that vertical hierarchy going on, there's also everyone plays a role, and that's what people fail to understand, is that morality can transcend a hierarchy like that. It's not a question of that. It's just a question of people understanding sort of where they plug into the broader scale of things. You know what I mean? I think it's like looks, and just bringing it back to looks. This is just one particular thing. Settle for, or not settle. That's such a bad way of putting it. But just, go for people who are generally like in your, either maybe someone who's better looking than you, but they might end up being like a little dumber than you or having less common interests with you, or someone who's more like you, more like on your level. But you know what I mean? Just like, don't be overly ambitious with that stuff. Just find someone who, what I would aim for is just, try to aim for people who you just sort of perfect balance of like enjoying the company of and all that other stuff. Just like for me, I'm just like so over like, kind of chasing tail, as it were. But it's like I feel like the whole Yeah, exactly. In a traditional society, that's such a. I mean, it's goofy, but it's like you know what I mean. It's like at any point in history prior to recently, due to things like like institutions of marriage and arrangements as such, people would just sort of pair off with people who are generally kind of like them, sometimes a bit different from them, but it was a healthy system. It paired people off, or sometimes it was even not pairs, and it was like polygamous systems or whatever. But the point is, it worked out, and people ended up a lot more satisfied, I think, than they are in the present system, which seems to leave a lot of people like sad and miserable and stuff like that. Especially like I look at a lot of these like people from all their late 20s into like their early 40s, sometimes even late 40s and 50s in New York, and it's like a lot of them are just like so sad, washed up. It's like they probably had a lot of sex and drank a lot and did a lot of drugs and partied super hard. It's like, oh, they were so edgy. They listened to all the coolest music. They got all the coolest bands. They traveled around the world. They were backpacking and shit, dude. Like, and I mean, I get it. Listen, that has its place. Like, I understand the drive for the libertine instinct, for the explorer, the sort of cosmopolitan, like citizen of the world thing. I get it all, but it's just I don't know, yeah, it's just not it's not people end up miserable. They just end up sort of like screwing their early lives away, and for men it's less bad than it is for women. I hate to say it, but I think for women seem to end up even a lot more sad and then justifying this later on in life. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like people who end up like kind of unmarried. It's like you're unmarried, you don't have any kids. It's like, fuck. I mean, I get it, but it's like it's just kind of sad, and I feel like those people aren't necessarily that happy because it's like what else do we exist for? Like, how would our ancestors feel looking at us today? It's cliche, but you know what I mean.
I understand what you mean. In terms of that, like where I'd say I am with women right now, after coming out of MGTOW,
I was just saying, like, stay in your lane, Goy, basically. Like, for me, I stay in my lane. Like, I just look for like good people to the extent I look for anyone for like some sort of romantic partner or something like that. It's like look for a it's like, yeah, don't have super high standards, because I feel like a lot of these incel type peoples are honestly people who do have super high standards. And yeah, I think porn somewhat does contribute to that, but I don't think it's just that. I think overall it's certain just societal stuff, and it's like, I don't know, we live in just this like this we just sort of fetishize like certain types of external beauty, but it's like the superficiality of it all. It's not like purity beauty, like purity and like goodness beauty. It's like a like I don't know. I just yeah, like I was just in LA, for instance, recently a few months ago, and it's just like I don't really vibe with that sort of stuff, I guess. Like, yeah, we need to people just need to be a little more like honest and modest and humble. It's just my approach to all of this stuff in terms of like men being dissatisfied with like but the thing is, yeah, there are a lot of problems with modern women, but it's like there are so many problems with modern men. It's like, how would we even go about solving this? Like, what did the Mingdaos and MRAs produce a radical solution? Like, they don't have a vision. Like, they're just like, oh, the tradcons, oh, blah 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 blah, like they're cucks, they love women or whatever. It's like, okay, but at least the people who look back, at least people like me and Fahad, less so Fahad. I mean, he's not. I mean, he's got a second wife, but I'm not sure how he's maintaining that situation exactly. I'm not sure how the terms are with his first wife, but it's like, people like, in a more traditional civilization, it's like these things are all accounted for. What did the Mingdaos propose? They just proposed like ride out the collapse, basically, and sort of like have fun, like just do you. Like a lot of them sort of have this kind of like hedonist worldview. I feel like a lot of Mingdaos are generally kind of atheists too. You can't be religious in Mingdao. You can't be religious in Mingdao.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge atheist contingent within MGTOW. There's a huge atheist contingent. You either get atheists or hyper judgmental Protestants. That's usually what I see. And then there was also one Muslim MGTOW I knew. That was it.
Psychoanalyze MRAs, and why did you become one?
Oh, what was psychoanalyze MRAs?
Yeah,
I mean, look, MRAs are pretty simple. They apply the same philosophy that feminists apply. They just want it applied to men as well.
Sorry, not MRAs. MRAs aren't interesting. Like MRAs, yeah, I know what MRAs do. I'm talking about like Mingdao's incel, black pill, and the sort of like that more side of things. Like specifically like the more the disgruntled Mingdaos. Because here's the thing: it's like every one of those Mingdao videos, there are the comments of like, "Oh, women are like disgusting cattle. Women are like parasitic leeches." There's all this like spurg shit. It's like, I mean, whatever. Like, okay, again, like this is my classic phrase. Like, I get it, but I see where you're coming from. But it's like that all the Mingdao videos you say like, "Oh, Mingdao aren't bitter." It's like all this bitter incel. I mean, it is YouTube comments, but it's like, you know what I'm talking about.
I understand. Okay, now I get it. Now I have a general.
And when I talk to these people, they'll be voicing this stuff. Like, and even like I forget. I think I was in a chat once with not Roosh V, but it was like a Roosh V acolyte type person. And it's like, oh, all right, dude, like I get it. Women suck. Okay. I love women because I don't want to like fucking be a degenerate. Cool. Yeah. Like whatever. I mean, I just find it to be sort of like they are so bitter and hateful, and it's like anything bad is like
let me tell you.
You know what I mean. Tell me about that shit.
Yes, let me tell you, this is a very simple problem, and it is a job market problem. That is a job market problem. Half the guys who are these self-imposed incels, they give up on life, they give up on freedom, because what's happened is the high school to freedom system over time in America, it really in the West, has become the high school to college system. And here's the thing. There are a lot of people who are in the situation where they were basically like me. So this was part of what motivated my MGTOW phase, right? So I already said I don't have bad trouble like with women. I don't have anything like really bad that I'm really bad at with women. It's just that this one area of my life, which was financially based, was incredibly shit. And I mean so shit, I didn't have a car. I mean so shit, I was lucky to have $5 in my wallet a month. That kind of shit. And with a lot of these incels, they look at themselves, especially the ones who can't find work, can't find a job, are still financially dependent on their parents. They look at themselves as, and to some degree they rightfully should, because they should have an urge to get out, but obviously they take it too far, and they self-impose this self-hatred label of undesirable, unwanted, uncared for, will never be loved, the whole shebang. If I find a woman, she'll probably just cheat on me anyway. You know, that whole concept. And it really does come from this just looking at your wallet, realizing that you're living in the adult world now, if we're talking about the sort of 17 to 25-year-olds, realizing that you're in the adult world now, and that you are, that sends you down this spiral. It sends you down this spiral of, I'm not good enough. And if I'm not good enough, then that means there must be someone to blame for this. And there has to be someone to blame for it, because you're over emotional now. And you're going to logically extrapolate from that emotion that there must be someone to blame. There must be some entity causing this suffering. You'll either blame a god or blame women. And that'll send you down a spiral, which will eventually, if you take the blaming God route, it just leads to blaming women again. So that's, regardless, it still leads you down the same spiral. And it's the same thing. It just, that results in the future Elliot Rodgers.
So
Absolutely.
It's basically guys who feel like they're just sort of like outcompeted. It's literally like the the wolf pack or the bonobo, or bonobos don't really do this, but like the gorilla pack or chimps or whatever. And like one of them is ostracized, he's like the low status chimp, and like that can be like whatever, that chimp has like less berries, let's say. But but do you think it is so purely financial? Because I've seen a lot of channels that are called like, like I forget, it's called like looks, capital looks, or looksism, and then there's one called like face LMS, face looks money status, that talk about like how all women actually care about is looks. It's like less about money and status. It's mostly looks. And I mean, like,
I will say this: there are men who look like supermodels who have had to come to the terms with the fact that they are average. They are average because, and this is actually, if you want to look up, what is it? Lean physique MGTOW. If you want to look up lean physique MGTOW, he is a supermodel looking man. He genuinely is, but he does all these videos where he just fundamentally lays out the truth about sort of female attraction through looks and how he views his world. But he sees himself as like on the high end of average. That's what he says. Average is a very large spectrum, But to women, average is also undesirable, and average is the bottom 80% of men. And that does line up with what we see in the sexual choices of women after a sexual revolution in a country, right?
80% statistic. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons I left MGTOW. They didn't want to connect that with a sexual revolution. They wanted to connect that with all women. It's like, no, not really. If you get them to believe actual certain values, especially if you hold their feet to the hellfire in terms of what you don't see them, what they see themselves condemning themselves to if they cheat, then guess what? They're less likely to cheat. It's this crazy idea that if you enforce consequences for actions, even if they're metaphysical consequences, then people are less likely to do those actions.
And it was also, to some degree, I'll admit, like, I'm such a bad person that there's a sentiment in my mind that once I began pondering the possible existence of the divine, I started to see things differently. I started to, even though at first I shrugged off the feelings as ridiculous, and now I can't shake them. They're there. I always feel like God and my ancestors are watching over everything that I do. And sometimes it kind of stresses me out because, like, I'll just be in the middle of doing something and, like, feeling there's something I probably should be doing, and I'll suddenly have like that concept flash into my head. I don't know why. It's just like super. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. Now it's just like kind of part of the way I think. It's weird. It's like I can't shake it. I'm going to read some comments from the chat quickly. Okay. He says, King Kush says, I think he's talking about Mingdao. I feel like it's just a confidence healing bubble. Happy Merchant says, the philosophy behind these ideologies, height isn't important. I'm kind of short and had sex with a lot of women. Confidence goes a long way, TBH. Women will disregard your economic status if your game is on point. King Kush says, I have a younger woman. I have no money and met a broke girl and built a mini empire. And Diaz says, there are 3 things women like. Looks, which involves height, confidence, and money. All right, these are interesting. I mean, again, this is all a bit reductionist, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't even care that much about, like, women, men, gender politics, whatever. What do you think men look for in women? See, this is something that needs to be talked about too. Men love talking about women in, like, these little groups, but, like, what do men like? What do men actually seek in a woman? Because women have hypotheses on these. Women think it's all looks, basically.
Well, men make up excuses, I think, for what we like in women, but what we really do like in women is fertility, and this is one that I have suggested, but I think a lot of guys are hostile towards. I think a lot of guys want this, or rather they want the positive side effects of this, but they don't want to put up with the reality of it, which is that men really want a woman with sort of that high fertility. Just means really youth, so ages anywhere from really like 18 to late 20s, but then like just any age before 30. But then also they want a high IQ woman. And not a lot of men will admit to that. Not a lot of men will admit to that they don't want, again, they don't want a woman to earn more than them. They don't want a woman to like lord over them or be their boss. But what they want is a woman who is capable in terms of intellectual ability. Usually that's what a lot of men want, but won't admit that they want, because men think that that leads to fundamentally negative things. And then there are evolutionary reasons to believe that. But really, it's just... It's this sort of, you find out pretty quick that high IQ women are less likely to be interested in promiscuous sex. And for a lot of men, they get kind of angry at that. They get kind of angry that, like, oh, she's not down for the promiscuous sex. She's not down for, she doesn't want to screw at first. So it's like, what does that mean? I
think it's a real hard question to answer because, I mean, I guess it would depend on, each guy. Some guys are just looking to fuck around, or some guys are looking to get married, and that's gonna involve, drastically different women sometimes, depending on your end goal. Some men don't want anything to do with getting married or, children, or, interested in having a family if they do have children. I mean, you can basically do that with anybody.
No, I understand that. It really is. Well, okay, so like there's a unique requirement I have, right? That unique requirement is like, because of my really slow metabolism, I don't want to have my kids be forced to be permanently round. So I need a woman with a really high metabolism. Now, that doesn't mean she has to be anorexic. That doesn't mean she has to look like a supermodel. That doesn't mean, no. It just means she has to have that so my kids won't be really, I mean, honestly, if I'm honest, that's not even the fundamental body type I'm into. But yeah, high metabolism would be good
I
for my
understand
kids.
you don't want your children to die, and if you plan to raise them in America.
No, I think people need to actually look at it like that. You know, look at qualities and weigh them out. I think there's not a lot of planned families at all. I think a lot of people just end up in bed with each other, and somebody gets fucking pregnant, and then there you go. So I think that's actually a good thing. I would never counter signal that at all. You know, I had a checklist myself before I was going to settle down with any particular woman. You know, and you're right. For some people, it does have little to do with the IQ, because if she was too stupid for me to hold a conversation with, I'm not sticking around.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just that. Men tend to want
I think
to
that we unconsciously select for, I guess, things that are various types of intelligence or other types of like cerebral capabilities when we, you know, more so
Well,
than
it's
we notice.
frustrating to me. I did very good in school, and you know, and got good grades, and you know, even went to a few gifted programs, you know, high test scores and things like that. I've never had an IQ test or anything. I've been pretty brainy my whole life, and it, you know, as far as not just keeping company with a woman that was smart, it did have, you know, it would extend to maybe the children that I would have with her, because it'd be so frustrating. I have to sit there and struggle with a kid who can't read or is in special ed class and shit when I did so well in school. I don't think I could handle that.
I do you did you okay, this is, I mean, that got me thinking about a whole train of things, but I don't want to derail the conversation too much. I don't know. I was gonna ask you some personal questions, but yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was just going to finish up my point by saying the specific paradoxical sort of thing with male attraction to the whole female IQ is this idea that we kind of want a woman who is below us in almost every other category, but a woman who is actually above us in IQ. And I mean above. I don't mean, and it's the thing. It's this very paradoxical nature of male attraction to smart women. It's that we want them to be higher IQ than us, but we don't want them to have these sort of like overbearing careers, make more money, and effectively become the leader of the household. It's like, and I'm not saying that that's a bad paradox. I'm saying it's a paradox we have to learn to manage. And it's not one that comes naturally. And as someone who, and again, basically, what do I say? I guess you could still say kind of recently left the MGTOW sphere, I'm coming to terms with what I value and what I find attractive in women. And then I'm saying, how can I do this in the most healthy way? I can't say, well, it's all blank or it's all not blank. I can't do that anymore. I no longer have those scapegoats. And really, I never did, even when I was MGTOW. That's why I got angry at MGTOW. And eventually, see, here's the thing. I left MGTOW. I didn't leave MGTOW because a woman sucked my dick. I left MGTOW because it was just logical. It made, God damn it, using logic again. I need to work on that. But it just made sense. It made sense based on the information they were telling me.
You
and
should
the
go to
actual
Thinking Ape's channel. Talk to him on his channel.
Thinking Ape?
Stardust. He's just some Mingdao, you know, or post Mingdao. I don't know what he is. He's like
I think you're thinking of
transhumanist.
Oh, Thinking Ape. Okay, sorry. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I kind of get.
he interviewed me once. It's on his channel. Good stuff.
How was that?
It was good. It was a lovely chat. I liked it a lot. Him and I just come from a different place in reality. He was always bringing it back to transhumanism. He's very future oriented. Do you guys believe that that's like a thing? Like, oh, gene. He was just talking about gene editing and whatnot. It's like, how far off? I mean, we've already somewhat gotten there, but I don't know. I think people are getting a bit ahead of themselves. I don't. What even is there an impending singularity? I don't know. I don't like the whole technology fetishism thing personally. I'm just like some dumb Luddite. Maybe I just can't keep up with the times and I'll be replaced with a robot.
I guess I like technology, and I'm a little bit scared of it too. I mean, dabbling in DNA and genetics and gene editing and all that, you know, it freaks me out. You think of all the bad sci-fi horror you've you've seen in life and things like that. But at the same time, I've kind of always liked technology, and you know, in some ways, I'm a futurist, but I guess I try to see it, somehow that it may not end up dystopian, but I don't know if that's even possible. It looks like it's about to spiral out of control, man.
Futurism is really interesting. I love futurism personally. I mean, I don't consider myself much of a futurist necessarily. I'm not Cater or anything, but I think there's some really interesting futurist writing. Of course, the Futurist Manifesto, but there's
I'm
really
kind of
futurist
into it
art.
To the degree that it's like the art thing, and it's sort of like a fascist vision for more like a technological society and things like that. I mean, I'm kind of dig
Futurism is the antidote in a lot of ways to the sort of like feminine, coddling, kind of maternal, kind of very much like, minimize harm and pain, minimize suffering oriented society that we live in today. It's very much like it presents an alternate vision, which is like a vision of like, dynamism, masculinity, energy, action, violence, the industrial, the mechanical, the advanced, the futuristic, the sleek, it embraces movement and it's just completely different from today, which is this sort of like very soft.
Right.
Like, it's the exact opposite. Futurism is the antidote to ideologically, I think, to where like America, for instance, is kind of right now, or just a little futurist ideology. Like read the Futurist Manifesto. It's just a little like intellectual, wankery. It's whatever. Like futurism isn't going to take off again, but it's like cool. It's cool. You know what I mean? The principles need to be re-implemented.
Yeah, I've read it. I've definitely checked that out. It's
I wasn't talking to you. I was just talking to the the 8 people who have the misfortune of watching this stream when I said read the Futurist Manifesto. I'm curious to hear, like, do you agree with my description of society? Do you think society is soft, as it were, and at least in a lot of the developed world?
Absolutely, it totally is. We've kind of been coddled by modernity, we used to have to, we weren't so safe, through the generations until now. You couldn't just pick up a phone and get help, or, society wasn't organized with a policeman every 5 blocks, things like that, So I think just naturally, closer to animals, the more violent it was. So I think the lack of that has kind of made us soft for sure.
Interesting. Do you think that what attributes make like a member of a healthy society, like a man in a healthy society, let's say, and what is the distance between where people are right now and where that is, to the degree that there is any? What are virtuous traits to you? I'm curious. Like what does a member of a thriving civilization look like?
Which one of us are you asking?
I'm talking mostly to you, yes, but either. Because I'd just be interested to hear your perspective.
Well, I don't know. Probably I'd have to do a lot with bravery. Not just the anti-soy thing. Basically everything not today.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. A lot of it is what we're not today.
Down to it, yeah. It's pretty much the opposite of what we have now. I mean, you can.
But that also means anti-order. And I think that you can get a bit carried away with being anti-order, and sometimes just because there's a bad hierarchy right now, sometimes people feel like, hierarchy is bad in general. And I think that sometimes people get a bit carried away, and it almost gets kind of like this sort of anarchistic.
Right.
That's not anarchistic, but you know what I mean. It's like
kind of. It's like they think that all government is bad because the government they're under now, or all they've known about, or within living memory, has been bad.
Yeah, and this is the difference between futurism and fascism, is because the fascists recognized like the need for order and hierarchy, and even incorporated and looked back and had some traditional and reactionary and sort of semi-spiritual elements, whereas the futurists were very much sort of like, quote, progressive, as it were, like forward-oriented, like industrialism, the new, like they were anti-reactionary in a sense, but they were anti-reactionary, I guess, from this sort of like right-wing progressive perspective.
I mean,
Sorry.
ill deuce notwithstanding, I will say my fundamental view of masculinity and masculine virtues absolutely is an Italian nationalist view. It is that sort of unique sense of taking action, not just when you see a threat, but when you see a threat growing, and then having a communitarian sort of social sense to encourage that man, to congratulate that man, to honor that man when he acts and has
Damn.
acted first.
That is rousing. Diaz,
Yep.
does that resonate with you?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, for sure. Yep.
I see. There are certain words that just by the way that someone talks, it's like you can tell, even if someone doesn't explicitly say anything even ideological or make a statement, just by the words they use, people pick up on certain words and they can sort of get like, this is wrong think. This is wrong think because it's hearkening back, and you can't do that. You can't hearken back. You can only go forwards in this little like cattle sty direction that goes towards like sort of like globalist capitalist atomization, secularism, hyper material conception of reality, kind of like enlightenment values, individualism, all this kind of stuff. Even just sort of the way that people talk, like someone like there was kind of a left-wing person who was on a Discord server recently, like that I was with, calling me out on this, and they were saying like, you're saying all this stuff about like ancestors and against the imperialists and against globalism. Like I can tell that you're like one of those evil right wingers. And I mean, it's like, yeah, cool, whatever. I mean, I don't really even I align myself, like I don't like right wing, left wing, like who even cares? For me, it's just a matter of like I just support what I just look back and I'm just like, yeah, like things were better back then. It's not some idealized version of the past. I'm just thinking, if now we have a state of affairs that isn't making people healthy and happy, morally, on a sort of spiritual level, on a purpose-driven level, like on a metaphysical, ontological level, then maybe we need to look back to a time when people were more grounded in this manner, because perhaps detaching ourselves from these things wasn't necessarily such a good idea. So now we've unleashed the genie from the bottle.
I mean, that ties into, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, that ties into Dr. Steve Turley's concept of post-globalism. And post-globalism is literally just a reference to the idea that we are currently living in an age where, and not just like European and Middle Eastern, but all over the world, people have been, in any liberal area, fundamentally disillusioned by, in majority, disillusioned by this idea of a one-world government, a utopian world. They are turning back to their nation, their country, their ethnicity, their race, their religion, their identity to gain their morals back that secularism they feel has taken from them. There's also a feeling of loss of dignity and pride in being a human being that sort of has been lost by, I feel like, a lot of the world. Certainly is felt by the first world Western countries in a very specific way, and then also in this kind of, obviously it's in a different way, but it's certainly by a lot of these Middle Eastern countries that have been sort of war-torn as well. There's this dignity to being,
and there's something going on in East Asia too, and I think there's sentiments like this in the subcontinent. I think it's like worldwide. I think a lot of people are rejecting a lot of what modernity seems to have to offer, the modern capitalist world order. There are benefits, but there are also downsides, and a lot of people are not liking the ideological stuff that comes with this, even if the free trade deal benefits their country, let's say.
Yes, they're eager to restore a sense of divinity to their people, and just all over the world. Okay, Luis, you go on. I would go on a 5-hour rant about that. So.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I probably shouldn't say it anyways because it's bad optics. But I always like to, hate to say it, but
dude, this is Babylonian Hebrew live stream. No one cares about optics. This is like my bootleg 100 sub stream, please.
Well, I kind of like what the Nazis had going, where they kind of looked sort of like the ancient warrior type of, tradition, but they also had like a modern view of things. They had technology and, all that, at the same time. It was sort of like, I forgot who described it or used the term, but they're like knights of a new age kind of thing, where they kind of go into the future, but they look to the past for,
I totally know what you mean. Yeah, and there are many groups that did this. Yeah, them, the fascists did this in Italy. There are what's it called, like Japanese imperialists. You know, they draw upon the imperial tradition. You know, they draw upon the the imperial lineage. You know, this great history and heritage harkening back so long, etc. The Like everyone, everyone does this. You know, everyone's quote guilty of this because it makes perfect sense. It's like you fuse certain aspects of the old with the new. It's like Guillaume Faye, archaeofuturism. It's like Afrofuturism is another example of this. Afrofuturism never really, unfortunately, took off in reality. It yet still might, but like things like that. And even like if you look at like a lot of the early secular Zionists, the ones who were smart and the ones who weren't just like, oh, we need to like completely westernize. But they looked back at our ancestors and they looked at like ancient Hebrew warriors defending the Levant. I know it's crazy, right? Hebrew warriors. Like there was actually a time when that was a thing. But the point is yeah, harkening back and incorporating that with like looking forwards or like a more dynamic traditional society with elements of like modern technology, you can have the best of both worlds. And I think that there are a lot of interesting experimentations with various aspects of both of those things.
That's what I'm getting at.
Super interesting.
Exactly what you're saying, man. It's just like you said, it's like the future and the past fused together, sort of, you know. And I always like that about fascism. It sort of always had like a duality. It was traditionalist and futurist, reactionary and revolutionary. It's not capitalist or communist. You know, it's sort of got like this either midway point or it's sort of like both at the same time in whatever kind of, aspect that it's kind of involved in, whatever it is, it sort of either takes a middle ground or a mixture of both, you know.
Third position. Some people say, yeah, third position. What do you guys think of Dugan?
I've never read his stuff, man. I'm definitely not eligible to be talking about his stuff. I know little about it.
There's a book that I really want to read by him called The Fourth Political Theory that someone recommended to me to sort of really understand it, that I should read an English translation of The Fourth Political Theory, but or whatever it's called, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Sorry?
Self.
I can't hear you. Your mic's cutting out.
No, I was saying I like the third political theory myself. I don't think we got
yeah. What is the difference between what is like third positionism when people say that? Because it means a lot of things in a lot of different contexts. Like I have a third position. It just means rejection of capitalism and communism, basically. But it sort of implies some sort of like traditionalist or reactionary or fascist or theocratic thing going on instead.
Yeah, it was mostly refers to the economic third position. You know, somewhere between capitalism and communism, but again, like I was saying, you sort of find this third position between a lot of things when it comes to that type of politic. It's not always just economics. You know, they actually have a third position on sort of like like I said, they kind of look at the past and the future at the same time. The third position applies to a lot of the positions within that. Not just economic, but yeah, that's what it came about. It mostly talked about the economic third position, ultranationalist economic third position. That's basically fascism.
Cancun just dropped out. Anyway, yeah, no, I agree. I think this stuff is interesting. And in the chat, someone says archaeofuturism, nostalgic futurism. Yup, the Nazis had awesome aesthetics. Roman Empire 2.0. And Dugan loves Boas. I assume Franz Boas. Yeah, Franz Boas was an anti-globalist at heart. Really? Someone says Franz Boas was an anti-globalist at heart. Then why did he display what seems to be ideological bias when measuring those skulls? It seems like he was trying to prove an agenda there, and he was kind of like...
all like, people... yeah. There's no difference in human beings at all.
Yeah, straight up. That's how I perceive that. Like, I always talk about, there's this thing of like Jewish anthropologists trying to get the idea of race out of anthropology by like blurring it and saying like population clusters instead. Like after World War II, because the idea of race is like triggering because they targeted Jews because they're like biracial. Holocaust. Like race is bad. Like literally like I always had this narrative of like there's this kind of like there was like a Jewish clique kind of in anthropology and the surrounding media of it to kind of push push against concepts like race.
I think
So
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true too, but if post-liberal age has something to dispute that in the comment section, I'm curious to hear what it is.
Well, I know that one guy disputed the hell out of it the one time where I was on the show, and it was just, what was that other guy's name? He just
Cater
argued.
Endless?
No, it was a different guy, Patrick. He just argued with me like for 4 hours.
Oh, dude, Patrick.
Like the Jewish question, real, you know, and I walked away from him feeling like, am I full of shit? Or like, how is it not obvious to him?
For me,
okay. Patrick is interesting.
When it comes to sort of the Jewish question in terms of what you were just talking about, I'm sorry, my entire thing dropped and I had to rejoin. When it comes to the Jewish question on covering up certain race information in the scientific community, what I'm going to recommend are 2 interviews that Dave Rubin did that are accidentally very telling into the mind of biologists when it comes to race. And the first one is with Brett Weinstein, just Brett Weinstein, not his brother. So just him. And then
his
the
brother
second,
Harvey?
Yes.
No, I know his brother's also a university professor, right? Or something like that.
But then also his interview with Steven Pinker. And you do those 2 interviews, and what you'll find is that both of them get asked about race, and they both answer in the same very paradoxical way. And you sort of see how they were raised. And they're of course, they're both Jewish men. And this idea of, and here's the thing, I don't believe it's a conspiracy. What I believe is that they were simply raised in households where they were led to believe any talk of genuine race would result in this sort of Nazi uprising. Then they get to their work, they get to these discoveries, and then they think, oh no, this information could be dangerous. Let's just move this over here. And I stress that whenever I explain, like, when something gets covered up, I have to make it clear to people it is as simple as shifting where one document of paper or a file on a computer is with another. That's all it is.
Okay, I'm just going to take the opposing argument here just for a second. Here's the thing. I agree. Like, yeah, obviously humans are biologically diverse. Like, humans have evolved, and all aspects of humans have evolved. Humans evolved to suit their environments and whatnot, and other selection processes. You know, there's genetic drift. There's different groups mixing later on. Humans are super interesting, and there's a lot of complexity going on there. But sometimes the way that people can approach these things, especially, they usually start head first with things like, you know, intelligence. And I think it's a bit, you know, it's just like, you know, it's not nice, for lack of a better term. It's rude because people don't like the idea that like intelligence is hereditary, even if you're taking out the element of like population groups.
I agree.
Which makes it really taboo, even between like, let's say, like telling someone, you know, fixed intelligence. I mean, I don't find it bad. For me, it's like few. Like, it's kind of, I enjoy living in a world that has a more kind of deterministic view, because it's just sort of, you know, everything kind of falls into place. Like, and if anything, you know, you can kind of like it's more sympathetic, you know, as opposed to like, oh, it's not deterministic. That's kind of like that ridiculous, like, oh, just work harder. It's like, no, like, everyone has their place. Everyone has their role. Like, I get it. Like, I'm not going to be, you know, the next big, important intellectual person ever. Like, I'm just some dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people just need to understand that sort of stuff. It's like,
no, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if I was building up a natural curriculum to teach
but people are
about,
averse to it. That's the thing. Like, people are scared by ideas like that, just instinctually, viscerally. I think some of it's like Enlightenment conditioning, but like in ancient times, everyone was like, my people are the smartest and the strongest. But like, people understood that there were, like, let's say, differences between peoples. Like, everyone understood this. It's only recently that people are viscerally opposed to it. Where do you think it comes from?
Well, okay, so I'd say 2 things to that. Firstly, I'd want to quell your fears on IQ and how people would react to it. The first thing I would do if I was building a curriculum around race is, because it's such a non-hit-on issue, I would just talk about resting hormonal mentalities in the average insert racial and ethnic group here, men and women, and then do that with different races first before applying the IQ information. That also works better for a curriculum teaching people about race, because it helps define behavior better before you get into the IQ stuff. But secondly, where that comes from in terms of like where people are viscerally against the idea of race is simply that we do, and it comes ironically from this same place that the pro-race stuff is coming from right now. The pro-identitarianism stuff is coming from, which is we want to believe that humans have an essence of divinity in them. Now, that can be any religion, that can be any view, but it's this fundamental overlapping theme. Humans have to have this element of divinity to them.
Cater's in the chat, and I'm not sure if he'll necessarily agree with this. Hold on, just going to invite him in real quick. I agree. But like here's the thing, or I wouldn't necessarily phrase it in such a manner, but like I see where your sentiment is coming from. Post liberal age says, Dugan loves Boaz. Franz Boaz, an anti-globalist at heart. I'm not saying Boaz was a race realist. You conflate two different subjects. Post liberal age, I was not responding to your comment that Boaz was an anti-globalist when I began talking about his mismeasuring, his nonsense, his shenanigans. It's not a question of whether he quote unquote is a race realist or not. It's just a question of displaying a lack of integrity, and that was a response to you saying that like he is awesome, or wait, did you say that he was awesome, or no, you didn't say that he was awesome. Actually, I was just conflating two comments. It was someone else had some comment about something else being awesome. But yeah, Franz Boaz was an anti-globalist at heart. Yeah, he may have been an anti-globalist. I'm curious. Do you have any writings that you would recommend to me? I don't know particularly much about Franz Boaz, but I know about him to the extent that he gets brought up like in the anthropology classes I've taken. I've taken like a year's worth of physical anthropology classes, and we've talked about him a few times. But yeah, if you have anything that you would, let's see some. Yeah, if you do have any interesting Boaz, I'm curious to hear where you're picking up on the sentiment from Boaz, because I'm interested to know more. I'm always interested in, almost everyone who's some sort of intellectual, some sort of thinker or something, most of them have some sort of eccentricities or quirks or interesting qualities to them, and I'm always kind of eager to learn more. Anyway, welcome, Cater. What's up? Let's have a shit show about atheism. Is that what we're here for?
Hello? No, I don't believe so. I wasn't here for anything other than that. You invited me.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I kid. Hey, what's up? How's everything going? How's the Logos Club? How do you feel about your appearance on Luke Ford? Primarily,
you're echoing. Is that just me, or
how did you feel about your appearance on Luke Ford?
Oh, I felt it went okay.
Did you?
Well,
was the chat bullying you?
I should ask other people.
Luke said that you were like a like he thought you were ugly. I don't know why he thought that. Your voice is like a kind of like I can see what you look like from your voice. Like I knew what you looked like before you ever turned the camera on. That's the thing. I could tell from your voice. Like I could predict it.
No, he didn't say he thought I was ugly before he seen me. He said he thought I was fat from the way I spoke, and I don't think I sound like a fat person. I don't know what he was on about, which is funny because Halsey had said previously, Halsey English, he had thought I was a woman because he hadn't heard me speak.
There's no end to this, is there? There's no end to this for you. So, have you been watching any of the recent Luke Ford shows by any chance? I just made this stream kind of getting off the last Luke Ford show. I'm just like deep in thought. I'm rambling after having watched that, and like another response stream to me, and just sort of being around that milieu. Like, have you been keeping up to date there at all, or no?
No, I've been very busy. I had to miss because he invited me back again, and I was going to go back on. It's just I was really busy with stuff. I have a lot of writing I have to do. I want to keep putting out content consistently for my website.
Well, there are 12 people watching right now. Talk about it. Talk about it while you have a captive audience of 12, because the Logos Club isn't bad at all. For anyone who liked West Coast Reactionaries, which is the blog that I wrote for and Adam Wallace wrote for, West Coast Reactionaries branched off and it became several other things like my channel, the Logos Club, and Thermidor Mag. But yeah, talk about the Logos Club.
Well, the current project I'm doing right now is a refutation, largely a refutation. They do make some sound points of various different critical theorists, and one the main guy I'm focusing on is a guy named Lee Edelman, and or Adelman. So people pronounce his name differently, so I'm not really sure exactly how it's pronounced, but he's like a really well-known queer theorist. And the thing that people have to understand about the queer theorist academics is it's not all about like sex and dildos and weird hair, even though that's what.
Dude, you're coming back with the queer theorism again.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
it's important to understand where these people are coming from because it's affected so much stuff.
The pause is seeping through your pores subconsciously, whether you like it or
Well,
not.
see, that's something that needs to be remarked upon too, is that because these ideas have become associated with such ridiculous and cartoony behavior from people like Antifa and stuff like that. Or rather, it's like what happened with Marxism with Antifa. Like it used to be really
on a visceral level. Some people are
What?
just like repulsed. Some people are just viscerally repulsed by anything.
Yeah, so they just don't. Yeah, so they won't.
Yeah. What do you say to them? But to us,
Well, I say
rather.
no. There's a lot of reason to be repulsed, but the reason I'm doing it is because, like, first of all, there's not a lot of critical engagement with these people because they're academics. So, like, just academics generally don't get engaged with directly by the public usually, which I think is unfortunate. I wish there was more interface. So that's something I'm going to be trying to move towards in the future with Logos. I'm going to try to do a lot more papers that are direct engagements with serious academics. Some of the people I'm covering, I don't consider to be serious. Like Corinne Mayer is she's crazy. She's not a serious person, but people that are serious, I do want to engage them critically and treat their work seriously, and just give a polite but very forceful refutation of what they're saying. Because I want to help further discourses with people as opposed to doing what most people do
Further
online,
discourses with queer theorists. You want to engage
Oh,
them,
sure,
but will they
yeah.
respond to you? They won't respond to criticism.
Oh, probably not.
Pull
Probably
the little
not.
queer
In fact,
window shut, the little queer drapes shut.
well, probably, but I just I think that simply because somebody else acts a particular way that is silly or trivial doesn't mean you should. I think people should try and hold themselves to a higher standard than what they're critiquing.
Yeah, hold themselves to a high. Yeah, so don't be gay, basically.
No, it's not about homosexuality. Like you people are obsessed with homos.
Knock it off, queer. Don't be queer.
What? You people are obsessed with homosexuality.
Oh, talk about queer. Oh, what is queer theory? All right, give me a basic rundown of queer theory. Listen, I've taken a few sociology classes. I've taken sociology classes at the New School, and they covered a bit. They delved briefly into queer theory. But I'm not angry. I'm passionate. I'm like Fahad. But the thing about queer theory is I barely even delved into it. You need to expound on this. Just go ahead, unleash a torrent. But yeah, just
okay. Well,
okay,
yeah.
Basic principles, like give me principles, authors, books.
Cater, unleash your inner Fahad now.
I don't know what that means, but no, it's not about homosexuality principally. Like the whole idea, because queer does not. I hate that it was actually because I like the word. When I first heard it when I was younger, the word queer, it was from Sherlock Holmes. It was from Sherlock Holmes talking about a murder. It was a queer murder because it means mysterious and peculiar and very odd in an off-putting way, but it's actually an old Scottish word that dates back to 1508.
Yes, but that has nothing to do. I mean, it has something to do with queer studies, but that's queer studies is like this. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
I know. I'm trying to explain. So the idea behind it, which emerged out of critical theory, was it would take up a space and create it would be a pattern of analysis that would be used towards people who were marginalized from the dominant power structures in whatever fashion, and regardless of what it was. So if it was like people that were intellectually marginalized and oppressed and whatnot, that's where they would focus on, and they focus their studies on them. And it just so happens that, not a lot of people are homosexual, as it turns out. And so they're one of those people that were grouped into it. And the LGBTQ, however many other letters of the alphabet that have been tacked onto that movement, picked it up, and they ran with it to a really ridiculous degree. And now you see, like, most of the stuff they do is all about, it's just all antenatal, hedonistic justification.
Yes.
For
but don't you
behaviors.
think that ideas like, let's say, a banding together of the sort of eccentric, marginalized outsiders, that is a I don't want to say revolutionary idea, but it's a it's a certain type of idea. It's not I don't want to call it a diasporic idea. It's a it's an outsider. I get it. I understand the appeal and the allure of it. I understand the appeal and the allure of it on a small scale, and perhaps like societally or intersocietally, like there are always kind of like sort of like, I guess, intellectual elite type people like that, like excluding the whole sexuality thing, ignoring that. But like I get it. But at the same time, it's also like the what do you call it? I don't like the whole like, oh, coalition of the oppressed, marginalized, underdog, victim, outsider. I don't like that. I prefer like healthily plugging into society in the big picture. It's like,
right.
I think it's a destructive force. It's like the Jewish thing,
I don't like it either, but that's not an argument against it. And I understand that, like, most people aren't going to be interested in
What's
what
your
the
argument against it?
Well, my argument against it is that it inherently forms coalitions that are diametrically opposed to, what they say is the dominant power structure. But the main problem with that is you're always going to have a dominant power structure, and their goal is to not ever have a dominant power structure. So their aims are almost inherently anarchistic, and even when they're not, they're definitionally, unless you're talking about somebody who's marginalized because of art or the way they think or something like that, it tends to lead to antenatal thinking. Like with, this freaking queer maternity stuff where, like they're trying to justify mothers who just hate their kids and they don't want to, have anything to do with them, or young girls who get pregnant, and then, just the justification of abortion and that kind of thing.
I see. So, all right, that's a reasonable argument, I guess. I mean, that's fairly makes sense. Let's see comments in the chat, fellas. This is getting degenerate. Freaking queer misfit army. Legitimize. Some guys looking up something about Franz Boas for me. That's
Boas was the cultural relativist, right?
I don't. I'm not that familiar with his cultural anthropology work. I just know about his physical anthropology work. Wait, am I thinking of? No, I'm not thinking of Boas. I just realized I was literally talking. I'm so tired. I was talking about Gould, I think, the entire time when I was saying Boas. I'm sorry. Boas. Franz Boas is the Margaret Mead guy, right? He's Margaret Mead was like his sort of acolyte, right?
I think
I was thinking of Gould. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry to the person in the chat. I was thinking of Gould. I'm literally an idiot. It's just like, I'm tired, but like I can't sleep, surgery, feeling crappy and weird.
Well, I think they both had the view that there was no difference between human beings at all, at least mentally. They both were on that type of idea. So you're not
even
too
if
far.
That was the sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's not that big of a mistake to mix them up, because fundamentally they both did deny that. They were pretty much like, denialist when it came to race differences, at least above the neck.
Yeah, and Gould is Jewish, by the way. Boas and Gould, they're both Jewish, right?
And they were both Marxist, I think. At least Gould was. I know he had certain different decorations around his office. I've seen a picture of it once.
Yeah, the recent turn that's happened with Zizek is interesting, because the whole Marxist, what
do you mean turn? Did Zizek turn? I don't think he necessarily turned. He's just critiquing. He's just critiquing some certain strains of leftists.
They consider him to have turned in a neo-reactionary direction, and so a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing coming out of Marxist academics is extremely critical of him as, not being commensurate with the leftist progressive project, which I think is kind of funny. But I mean, their criticisms are actually kind of true, because Zizek's always been more in line with, well, like Marx himself, who was very Eurocentric, and so is Zizek, and he actually thinks that Eurocentrism itself is the only thing that's really going to overcome the capitalist system, quote unquote.
Marx was interesting. I like psychologizing Marx. You can do it endlessly in so many different ways. You can do it.
Well, you're a Jew. That's what you do. You psychologize stuff.
Exactly. And yeah, and I can go into that in a sec. Post-liberal age says, I don't believe Boaz was a Marxist. What's it called? Psychologizing Marx. Marx's commentary on his own Jewishness I found to be absolutely fascinating. And I think that he embodies a certain characteristic of the diaspora Jew. The diaspora Jews strive for cosmopolitan. The hatred, but also identification with, on some level, manifesting itself in some manner with the self as the outsider or the other or the atomized individual, perhaps due to these things. It's kind of this diaspora thing. It's the galut thing. It's like Marx hated and he critiqued his own Jewish heritage because he viewed the Jews as a reactionary, traditionalistic, Asiatic, Oriental people as he saw it. He hated that. And again, this was sort of, as you said, Eurocentrism. This was his internalized white supremacy as a mixed Jew white guy.
It's internalized white supremacy.
Jews have internalized white supremacy.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before. What exactly do you mean by that?
It's just like obvious, you know what I mean? Like, you have Jewish women getting nose jobs. You have Jewish guys, like, it's not appropriate to have a Jewfro, just like you having an afro in the workplace, It's not appropriate, it's Jews, and in the end of the way, it's like Jews have just literally just, I mean, I understand, like, Ashkenazi Jews have been in the West for 2,000 years, but literally, it's like, all it is just like fetishizing the Western culture and aesthetics and repurposing it. And like even Israel just simply adopts Western aesthetics and governmental systems, et cetera, because a lot of the founding people of Israel were just sort of like, oh, it's Western, therefore it must be correct and advanced. It's like, no, you can just take the technological aspects and certain aspects like empirical thinking and like bring that back with you. And you can fuse that with a more traditional society, you know what I mean? It's like or a more authentic society. I think that Jews are like West washed in a way, and I mean, yeah, that's cool for some of them, but it's like if you're West washed, like, I guess, I mean, I don't know, assimilate or help the West or really be a part of it. Don't just critique talk about white supremacy from your like condo in Manhattan, like on like Vox and Salon and the New York Times, and you're some Jew or person of Hebrew descent or partial Hebrew descent, and you literally are like saying like, oh, white supremacy is evil, and you're not even moving to Israel or wanting to like or doing anything like to help Jews. You're just like you're just annoying and you're nagging and you're like leeching off.
Well, I
just don't like it. I just don't like the attitude that a lot of people manifest themselves here where I live.
I would be interested to know how many of those people actually believe what they're saying, because a lot of people that are activists just get caught up in the energy of the crowd when they're doing these chants about, killing fascists or whatever they like to go on about these days. And I don't think that many of the people believe them. I mean, recently somebody called me, what did they say? It was called me a fascist or something like that online, and said that I was whining because I had written an article that was talking about the yellow journalism and the smear campaigns and the doxing campaigns of Unicorn Riot, and that they do all those things. So that's not complaint or whining. It's certainly not whining. But I was just noting that they're a really horrible, odious organization, which they are.
Unicorn Riot?
Yeah. Yeah, the article was on the Logos Club. It was called the Yellow Journalism, or Unicorn Riot's Yellow Journalism. And yeah, they were just, what is it? That one guy who wrote for the Daily Stormer, which I think is a ridiculous website, but it doesn't matter what you think of the guy. Fellow's name he went by the pseudonym of Ziegler, and they doxed him, and now his life is basically ruined. Like the police were investigating into him as being like a white supremacist terrorist or something like that, and the guy has no criminal record. They would have put that out immediately.
He's the Iron March guy, isn't he?
What?
Ziegler, isn't that like the Iron March guy? Isn't he? Wasn't he like?
I don't know. I don't
Am
keep up
thinking
with
of
those
someone else?
people.
Yeah.
They're really annoying to me. These spastic people that like everything that you say. If you like the people in your chat, that are just going on about this is degenerate and blah blah blah, and everything's in all caps.
Hey, don't generalize. Hashtag not all Spurs.
No, I'm gonna. They are completely incapable of restraining
Don't
themselves.
act like they're not in your chat box too.
Well, I'll kick them out of my chat box.
Who isn't completely incapable of restraining themselves when you're anonymous in a YouTube chat box? But sorry, go on.
A lot of people that I've seen. A whole lot of people.
Oh yeah, that's not the place to observe decorum. That's the one place you don't need to.
Well, I don't care. I think they should hold themselves to a higher standard. Like look what happened with
Tone policing.
Augustus.
Tone policing.
What? Yeah.
No,
it's not about tone policing.
You're tone policing, Goy.
No, it's not about tone policing. Like when you're this is so ridiculous. You understand what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. I just like to wind you up. Please continue with your actual.
I'm actually just gonna head out here. I am very tired. I'm done with finals, so I'll have more time to do stuff like this. So anytime you want to do a normal, I guess what would you call this, Babylonian? Would you call this like an average or like a lazy stream?
Call this poor low quality.
This is anytime you want to do a poor man's Babylonian.
Yeah, this is bad. That's what this is. But I'm enjoying it. It's got better now that everyone's finally got here. It's a shame you have to leave, but yeah, thank you for contributing. Appreciate your voice.
Anytime you guys want to hang out, just contact me.
Much appreciated. Yeah. Thank you for giving a voice to the Spurg chat. Always appreciated. I've known this guy for a while. Think about how rare a Goyfro is. Goyfro occurs sometimes in the Middle East. I think in Yemen you see a few Goyfros. In Lebanon you see a few Goyfros. Thought Patrol. Alt-right has a lot of narcissists in it and autists. Cater, you often say, and sociopaths. Let's see. Coming from the guy who reads queer theories. Hashtag not all.
Yeah, so that's the kind of commentary I'm talking about.
All right, is this what you're referring to?
That's exactly what I'm referring to. It's and maybe he's joking, maybe, and that's another problem is that people. So I had seen a really good comment recently online that said we live in a period of time where treating serious topics seriously is one of the most is considered to be one of the most unserious things you can do. And that's absolutely true. And it's horrifying. It's that legitimately horrifies me that that's the case. And if you want to see that in action, all you have to do is go to some place online where somebody's talking about something that's really, really important. Some story about somebody getting murdered, and then having a bunch of people, just look at the chat, and then you'll see that instantaneously. You see this in the people that pick up. It's like
the Chan mentality. I know what it's like. Like, listen, yeah. I've been in the Spurg chat. I've been on the other end of the anonymity. It's like whatever. Like I know what it's like. I posted on the Int Mena forum for like 3 years straight. All right. But sorry. What do you?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's just some obscure nonsense. That's the point. Like, it's just.
So the point is to be pointless.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing is just sort of an exercise in, I guess it's just sort of like it's a combination of like entertainment, but it's like people come close to almost supporting positions, but it's like they don't actually want to embrace anything because it's not cool, among other things, and they don't want to be pinned down on anything. People are afraid to in a lot of ways. They can't defend everything, their entire worldview. Who can defend their entire worldview?
Well, I think most people should be able to defend. The people that have a worldview should be able to defend their worldview.
Everyone has a worldview. We just don't know it.
Well, right. That's what I mean. There's a difference between, having something and being conscious that you have it. But the reason that most people do it, in my experience of just being abrasively horrible for seemingly no ends, that's usually cathartic. It's usually they have some kind of emotional frustration they're trying to expel, something they've internalized that they want to get off their shoulders or something like that. That's usually what it seems to be. But it's just unfortunate when you're talking about something that's really interesting or really important that a bunch of people could actually, if they got together and they made a lot of noise about it and they really pressed it, you could do something, and everyone's just like, oh, you're taking that issue that's really serious about all these kids dying or starving seriously. What a fag that guy is because he cares about kids starving. That kind of attitude I find really, really unpleasant.
Do you think so? What do you have this thing that you like call it sometimes sociopathy or misanthropy? Do you think that like that seems to be on the rise with also the rise of just sort of like general internet edginess? Do you genuinely think, like, to what degree do you think that this is actually like a psychological thing, or is it just basically people like me or whatever, just like some random guy you might know, just like sort of edging
No,
out
it's definitely
in
a
the chat for
psychological.
enjoyment? I just like to go to people. It's like the same. I just find it slightly amusing, but it's like I also sometimes want to have serious discussion.
Well,
Like sometimes you
that's
can't. You want to have a
different.
banter
Yeah.
too.
Well, I'm not
Yeah.
grouping you in with them. No, I think
No,
you're
I'm just
great.
saying, like, I've been on the other end of it, but I'm just thinking, you always say, sometimes you will say, like, oh, like the sociopathic side, the misanthropic side. I'm curious to hear to what degree, how deep do you think this actually runs?
It runs very deep. It's definitely a psychological phenomenon that's become more prevalent, and I'm not really sure as to why that is. I mean, it's obviously has something to do. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but it seems as if it has something to do with the cultural changes that have happened recently. I would be shocked if it didn't, but the I'm not really sure where it comes from. But now I'm not talking, and I want to clarify that I'm not talking about people that are making jokes or whatever. I make jokes all the time. I'm talking about people that like they take up, and I said this on Ford's show. They'll take up like somebody from history who's actually a sociopath and a murderer and somebody who's some butcher, and they'll use them as not like it begins ironically that they begin pressing these people as figureheads for their
Bar Kokhba.
ideas.
Is Bar Kokhba fall into this category? I like him.
Who?
He's
I don't know
the
who
dude
that
who
is.
led he's the dude who led like the mass Jewish revolt against Rome. But continue.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about. All right, dude. Are you like just be straight? Like name the names. Who are you talking about? Mao. You're not talking about Mao and Stalin, are you? Like.
Oh no, yeah,
you,
Mao, Stalin, but I'm not talking just about them. I'm talking about like recent cases.
like North
Like
Korea.
North Korea is a good one. The Ted Kaczynski people, the based, like the people that say based a lot. They're like, oh, based ISIS.
Based Ted Kaczynski.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Based ISIS? They threw a bunch of kids in an oven. What is that? Is that the where we're setting the standard? And then everybody just says, well, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. You can't take a joke. I can take jokes perfectly fine. I know tons of people that do joke, that are really comedic. That's not the issue. The issue is that that's not a joke. You're not even being funny, and you're no longer being ironic. You've like internalized your own attempt at comedy to such a degree you actually believe it.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're a sociopath.
Read the chat.
Yeah.
Read the chat. I want you to respond to the chat. Actually, now it's interesting. Like it's good.
Okay.
You're getting just legitimate. Like people are just talking to you. It's not like hostility or anything like that. It's just polite discourse at this point. Yeah. Go into the chat. See what's up. It's like
optics cuckery. What does that even mean?
No, unless this is optics cuckery, which has its place. I don't see this guy's point. All right, you can articulate optics cuckery, brother enabling, but the way that I interpret the term optics cuckery is people saying, I guess, bad optics is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're just being ridiculous.
It's like, yeah, optics cuckery is like sort of unnecessary fussing about bad optics.
Yeah, I'm leaving. This is ridiculous.
No.
Oh shit, son! He just took off.